Hey everyone, what's up? Welcome to the More America Show. I'm your host, Rob Noerr. You might notice my hat's a little cleaner than normal. My wife washed it for me. Unbeknownst to me, I have quite the grimy head. So, got that taken care of. Hope everyone's having a fantastic day. I am. Get to spend the day with my family. Day off work, always good. So, looking forward to today's show. We're going to be talking with John Burk on our normal Thursday, Friday show, our spaces. I'm not going to put the link out to the space yet because it may change. Sometime John set up a space already, set the time for it, but sometimes he has trouble hosting it. Hoser says, saw the debate I did with that food shops person. Don't know if they're putting on a percentage. Either way, it's unhinged. Yeah, they're really bad. It's really quite amazing just how bad so many people are arguing on the left. What's sad is when you have someone that you actually enjoy talking to because you think they're more of a competent debater, but then you see how bad they are and how bad faith they are, which is, again, couldn't help but throw a jab at my former associate Pisco again last night. Pisco weighing in on the debate last night. By the way, that's what we're going to be talking about tonight. Full disclosure, I didn't watch Trump's rally. I did watch the debate, and I'll be honest with you, I probably wouldn't have watched this debate had it not been the topic of conversation today. But I watched it. And I think that I have the best debate analysis. Granted, I'm biased, but for the people that were ranking people's performances in the debate, I was unimpressed with the majority of people I saw. So I tried to give an honest to goodness reaction of how well I thought each person did in the debate. Thank you, Lavin. I appreciate the sub. What's up, Aftershock? Truth be told, I think Vivek does the best in these. He's not in it to win it, though, because he's not criticizing Trump. And 90% of people that are like, wow, Vivek sounds great, are going to be Trump supporters. He has to distance himself from Trump. He's not doing that. The best you could say is the throwaway line he keeps saying, we need someone of a new generation, of a different generation. That's maybe a slight at Trump because he's older, but that's it. He's not specifically calling out Trump. And so he's in it to be the heir apparent, to be the next MAGA type person. And he's doing a pretty good job. Now, there are significant questions about his prior record. I love this criticism of Vivek. I understand what they're trying to say, but it just comes off sounding so dumb. He sounds too polished. He sounds too good. Okay. Yeah, God forbid we have someone that's saying the right things for once. I get it. Your gut reaction's like, I don't trust this. This guy's actually saying things that make sense. Yeah. So, I think Vivek, to me, spoke to me, and he's the candidate on the stage that I think has sounded the best every single debate that I've watched, which I've watched 3 of them now. But I think objectively he won if you evaluate the goals that they're trying to achieve. Vivek's goal's not to win. Vivek's goal's to set him up as the next MAGA type person. Did he do that? Yeah. Yeah, he did. Really well. Ron DeSantis' goal should be to set him up. You know what? I'll bury the lead. I'll make you tune into the spaces because I'll just be repeating myself. Was the GOP debate worth watching? The first 15 minutes to hear Vivek criticize Ronna McDaniel and the moderators. That was good. Other than that, yeah. You could just watch my review of it and trust me. You shouldn't trust anyone, to be honest, because, I see a bunch of evaluations of the debate, and it's like, Vivek did the best. Vivek did the worst. DeSantis did the best. DeSantis, no one's saying he did the worst, but yeah, like, as far as debating lefties, Pisco weighs in last night, and, my friends. I'm doing good, Ninja. I had to chime in. Fire alarm man weighs in. I disagree. I think it was Vivek Haley, then Ron, is the list I have it, and I'll explain why in my... It should never be left down that Pisco, again, still refuses to say that after the video that Jabal Bowman clearly pulled that fire alarm, didn't even attempt to go out the door, and it was clearly him attempting to obstruct. Pisco said in our discussions previously that it was clear, that it's absolutely clear that Bowman intended for the alarm to go off when he pulled it. Now, when he sees the double standard, that he wasn't charged with lying to police, he wasn't charged with obstructing an official proceeding, now all of a sudden he just gaslights and says, and he did this several times. The last time I discussed Pisco with this, what he said was, Rob said that a fire alarm wouldn't be able to unlock a door. And that's what he said. I just want to play, and then when I proved it was wrong, he's like, okay, well, you said there was a 20% chance that specific alarm could have opened that door, but a 0% chance. A 0% chance that Bowman would have thought that. Now, if you followed my big 7-hour discussion, you would see that actually, one second, if I can find this. I called this out exactly what Pisco was going to do, and I actually clipped a minute of it. Yes, it is a 20% chance that could open the door. However, there's a 0% chance that someone that's not involved in sort of the creation of specific alarms would never think that. You would never walk up to a door and see it's locked. No, I think I'll pull this alarm. So I want to show you the clip from our big discussion where Pisco also admits that. He also admits there would be a 0% chance. I said, how many times have you came to a locked door and said, I'm going to pull the fire alarm to unlock it? You wouldn't think of it. Is it possible that there are devices that when the alarm's pulled, that it unlocks the door? Sure. But no one's going to think of that when they see a door's locked, which is what I was saying. And he admitted it. But what's most important here is I want you to focus on how I call out exactly what will happen. That it's clearly bullshit that this was done by Bowman to leave the door, and that Pisco's going to change and deflect. He's going to say, but isn't it true that it's possible that this device exists? Therefore, Bowman must be okay. This was me over a month ago, like a day or two after this Bowman incident happened, explaining exactly what Pisco was going to do.
20%. What you're saying is that there's a 20% chance that you think that he might be right about it.
No. See, I like what you do here, right? So when we're talking about the actual situation, you say, no. We're just talking hypothetical. Hypothetical, is it possible that there's a mechanism out there?
20%.
Hypothetically, this is what he does. Hypothetically, is there a possibility there's a mechanism that does this? And then he says, oh, okay, then he was right. No, what he did was someone who walked and wasn't thinking, let me analyze this situation. Hypothetically, there could be a device out there that if I pull a fire alarm, will unlock this. How many times have you came across a door in your life that was locked and said, I'm going to look for a fire alarm? How many times have you done that? See if it'll unlock that door. Zero. Oh, but that's what Bowman did. So you admit that there's a 0% chance, a 0 times in your life that you've done it. But in this specific situation, and obviously for YouTube clip, you can only clip a minute. So that's what I had. But you can go back and watch that debate. That's exactly what's going on. Think of it, right? Hypothetically, aren't there canes that exist that are guns? Oh, therefore, that guy was trying to shoot someone when he had that cane. No, what are you talking about? All right, I think the space is ready to go.
And I'll give him co-host privileges. So last night's debate, I'm going to talk about it on the show today. Hopefully you got to watch it. I think for me, I think NBC. Let me first start off with I think NBC did actually a really good job. I was shocked, even at the beginning of the stream when they showed the panelists and moderators. I was actually kind of shocked. I was like, "Good grief!" It's like this is who we're getting to moderate these debates. This is wow. Okay, but I will say that I think they did a very good job. I don't feel like the questions were in and of themselves misleading. I did want to hear them talk about COVID. But somebody in a space last night, Reese's space, made a very good point in regards to the press is going to stay away from COVID. Can you hear me, Rob?
Yes. Sorry, there you cut out for a minute, but I can hear you now.
All right, perfect. So, good morning to everybody. Do me a favor, retweet the space. Rob, let's take it candidate by candidate. Let's start off with Christie. How do you think he did?
So the way I'm evaluating this, there's the way to look at it with, do I personally like what they say? And then there's, did they achieve their goals? I think Chris Christie did the worst of the five, because Chris Christie's goal is, I think everyone here will admit, he doesn't have a chance to win. His goal is to attack Trump, to kind of be a voice for sort of the old guard neocon class that hates MAGA and just wants to go after him. I thought Christie, in that regard, did worse than he has in any of these debates. There wasn't really any zingers. There wasn't even really any attempts. Like, there's legitimate ground on some of these questions to criticize Trump. I don't think Christie did that good of a job at all. And is there anything memorable you could say about any of his answers? It seemed like his answers were all just more vague versions of other people's answers, like Haley's or Scott's. So, yeah, I thought he did the worst of all the performers, or the people on the stage.
I definitely will agree with you. I called it before the show. Based upon the last two debates that we saw, Christie did nothing but go after Trump. I don't think he gave like a single answer that didn't involve just slamming Trump in some way. And he had like a fire to a passion to him. And I know that charisma, most people look at something like that. I know that we really shouldn't, because charisma has nothing to do with policy. But he was lacking it last night. I didn't get anything like that from him. It just seemed lackluster. It felt like talking to him was like talking to the mortician about making funeral arrangements for your parents. That's what it felt like. It's like, bro, you're depressing me tonight. I was like, I need the New Jersey personality. Not there. All right, moving on. What about Timmy boy?
So I put Tim Scott, you're actually, it's funny, you're going in reverse order of how well they thought they did. I put Tim Scott second to last. Here's the upside of Tim Scott. I think he comes across as likable, but both him and Christie seem to be lacking on specifics of policies that Haley and DeSantis and even Vivek had more specifics, I thought. So that's okay, though. Like, these debates aren't necessarily about just putting out specific, I would build this many ships and things like that. It's okay to be a person who's more creating a mood, creating an environment, creating buzz about yourself. I think Tim Scott did something that was interesting. He clearly doesn't have a chance. So what's he doing? He's trying to carve out a niche for himself in the party, and I think he does that to a degree. And that niche is sort of going after the evangelical vote or the Christian vote. He comes across as very knowledgeable of the Bible, being able to cite passage and verse off the top of his head, and he honestly seems authentic in that effort. He clearly doesn't have a chance to win, but I think that is a group of Republicans. It may not be you listening, but that's a group of Republicans that I think there's not someone really speaking their language to them, and I think Tim Scott speaks that language the best. However, I'm not impressed with any of the specifics. Like, none of his answers stand out as like, oh, that's a really interesting idea, or that's a bold idea that I either agree with or disagree with. Seemed very middle of the road and wishy-washy with most of his policy prescriptions. But I do applaud him for being likable and, trying to speak to a religious audience that maybe feels that they're getting lost in the shuffle.
Yeah, fair enough. I feel like Tim Scott, like, I don't want to criticize the guy out of the simple fact that he is very likable. He's probably not somebody I want to get a beer with, because I'd probably feel guilty about drinking the beer in front of him because he'd Bible quote me. But still, I think that when I look at him or I will speak, I think of like Southern Republican, Southern Democrat, just like, well, I say I love a Jew. Like, he comes across like that, like he's not preaching to you, but kind of like that algebra teacher that talks down. You don't know algebra. I don't know. That's the feeling I get from him. But yes, a lot of his answers were just kind of the status quo. I did like his breakdown of the economics issue. I respected the fact that he could do it in such a short period of time, but it was clearly rehearsed, but it was very well done. The one issue I was kind of surprised on him with was that he was advocating for a 15-week ban on abortion. After the Bible quoting, I had this guy pegged hard as a very religious type, and to concede ground in the pro-life movement, unless I misunderstood, I was like, I did not expect that from him.
Yeah, it's difficult because I think, as we talked about yesterday in the spaces, a lot of these Republicans are going to try to ride this fine line because of, the underwhelming performance of Republicans in the debate the other night. And rightfully or wrongfully, I do think that abortion has something to do with it, but it's only a small issue in a grand set of them. So I think that sort of the messaging went out with Republicans look, you can't, we're trying to set the ground for future elections that we don't want to come off as too extreme, like, as the executive, I'll ban all abortions, because that'll give cannon fodder to the left. So, yeah, I mean, I'm sure, my guess would be if he thought there was the political will to be able to achieve it, that he would probably be a life begins at conception, no abortions under any circumstance type person. But, yeah, if you gotta have like extra people, for me, the only people that should have been on the stage were the three we haven't talked about yet. I think if you're gonna add extra people, Scott's a fine person to add. He puts a little bit of a different perspective, but like you said, it seemed most of what he said was just, wasn't that impressive. It was sort of status quo. It was sort of, and it's unfortunate the way this goes. Someone has to speak first and someone has to speak last, and in each individual question. And oftentimes, I think what happens if you have a comment that's very similar to other people, but you don't speak first, whether fairly or unfairly on that specific issue, it sounds like, oh, they're just kind of repeating what everyone else on the stage has said. And it felt like Tim Scott always fell in the middle there for me at some point.
Yeah, I agree with you there. It was I saw a tweet circulating that I think it was the first debate he was interviewed. Said, do you have somebody? And I think he said no. And then last night he was spotted with a woman on the stage, or when he was walking off stage, and they're trying to see if they confirm like it was his girlfriend. And I saw people like making fun of him for it, just because they hated him or they didn't want to vote for him. And I'm kind of like, well done, man. Like she's beautiful. But people were like dogging him on that. It's like, this guy's a nice guy. Like he doesn't really give you a lot of bait, I guess, to hate him. And like he just seems like genuine. But I agree with you. Let's move on to Vivek. Yeah, Rob, go ahead on Vivek.
Yeah, I thought Vivek had the best performance of the night for two reasons. One, because I'm predisposed. I'll be fully honest. I'm almost a single issue voter on the issue of corruption. I think he spoke most heavily on corruption. I think his opening statement is indicative of exactly what every single Republican candidate should be. That it called out the Republican leadership, and then it called out institutions in this country that are rigging the game against Republicans. In this case, the moderators themselves, pushing the Russia collusion hoax and things like that. I wish Vivek would have done it more. I thought he left some things on the table where he had an opportunity to be able to say those things. I also think when he needed to, Vivek was good on specifics. He talked about things like, when the moderator, they really didn't like him. You could tell. And like the moderator really pushed him on, give me the specific amount of ships you would create or something like that. And he actually talked about the document that's in circulation that he would have said, we need to meet our obligations under this document. Look, the good things about Vivek is he sounds great. He's saying all the things that someone like me that's a populist wants to hear. Here's the bad. Is it all a show? His prior statement seemed to suggest that this is a pretty radical shift for him. And that's something that we really have to consider. The other thing is, Vivek isn't trying to win this election. Because if he was, he would be attacking Donald Trump. He's not. He is trying to be the heir apparent to Donald Trump and MAGA. And if that's his goal coming into this debate, I think he succeeds tremendously. Now, you might say, I don't really like Trump, and so this guy's just kind of kissing his ass. And that's sort of true. The only perceived thing that Vivek could said that possibly was a slight at Trump, he kept saying, we need someone from a new generation. But that's going to be his shtick. I like Trump, I like MAGA, but we need a younger person. And that's a very benign criticism of all the criticisms you can make of Trump. But when it comes to the goal that he was trying to achieve, I think Vivek did the best out of anyone on the stage, that of being the heir apparent to MAGA. I don't think he helped his chances to win the nomination. I don't think he has a chance because 90% of people that are impressed by Vivek's going to be like, Vivek's great because of Trump, because I like Trump. So who's going to be a Vivek voter? There'd be very few if anyone does it. I think that he's right to be aggressive, though I do think he came off as petty in his first spat with Nikki Haley. I don't mind the fact that at first I was like, bringing up her daughter on the TikTok questions, maybe out of bounds, but not really. It was very benign. And the fact that I then found out it's an adult daughter, yeah, I mean, whatever, that's fair game. Is Nikki Haley not going to criticize Don Jr. or Ivanka? Of course not. She would say that's in bounds. So she was a whiner about it. But what I didn't like was then Vivek kept insisting afterwards. No one up until that point had a chance to respond or had spoken over other people. And Vivek did that. And to me, it came across as a little petulant. And as someone that I would like to see as a leader, I don't think that that's necessary. If other people start that game, sure, then you join in. But up until that point in the debate, I actually thought it was going decently, where each person got to say their piece, and that was it. They didn't get a chance to respond. They didn't talk over other people. So Vivek started that. Haley also does it as well. But that was my, my downside on Vivek. But I thought that the goal of standing out on this stage, I think Vivek accomplished that tremendously. Every answer was bold, even if you didn't like it. You don't come across wondering, well, what's Vivek claiming he would do? And I don't think that's true of other candidates. So I thought that he had the best performance of the night, even though I don't think that makes me more likely to vote for him or that he's going to win the nomination.
I fully agree. Even with opening statements, Vivek instantly goes after the press, puts them on full display. Ron McDaniels, but I thought it was funny because you can always tell a lot about a person about who they attack and who they don't attack. Vivek goes after Ron McDaniels, says nothing about the man that appointed her. He's not going to, because as we already confirmed, Vivek is a Trump surrogate. That's very clear at this point. But his opening statement, putting the press on report, I guess, in a sense, I think that resonated with a lot of people, because even I'm not voting for the guy, but it's like, well done. It's emotional, and people like the bread and circus performative politics. He is an expert at this. He knows the language of the people. He is like a more refined, sharp-edged Trump to a degree. The pettiness is displayed when he went after Nikki several times. The daughter shot, I think that was because it was in response to her chiding him from the second election.
Yeah.
So he just waited a debate to punch back, and he did. But he wasn't wrong, pointing out the hypocrisy. Would I have done it? Yeah, I probably would have. I mean, at this point, it's like, they're out for blood. You have to be. You got to set yourself ahead of the pack, and Vivek clearly showed that. The thing that does concern me about Vivek is on the international stage. Vivek, he seems like one of those guys that's like, I've got these great pie-in-the-sky ideas that lack pragmatism. I feel like that's kind of who he is. So I wonder how he would do with, like, international relations. And I mean that sincerely, because you're not going to, like, pull an old switcheroo on Putin or something like that. Like, I get that vibe from him. But either way, the performance was good. I like the fact that he referenced freaking DeSantis on the fentanyl issue, like kind of reaching across the aisle. I didn't see that coming. I thought for sure Vivek would go after Ron a lot more, but instead he went after Haley. That does make me question, what's the strategy here? Like, what is he trying to accomplish with this? Because is this those two like trying to do they concede to the fact that it is going to be a Trump versus DeSantis primary at the end goal, and they're going for VP? I don't know, but yeah, I was actually shocked to see that. But as far as performative politics, charisma, Vivek took it. I think last time he tried to do the same thing, but he just got dogpiled. That was his own fault. But this time, for sure, man, yeah, I agree. He went out there and he definitely hit some nerves.
And let me just say this real quick about, he definitely seemed to be more after Haley than DeSantis. Now, there is one thing. Does everyone get when Vivek made the comment about Cheney light in high heels, he wasn't just insulting Haley. He was also trying to make a joke at DeSantis, right? But then Haley, like, flipping, with her little retort.
Yeah,
kind of.
I don't think that landed, because I caught that too, but she immediately responded and then kind of took full blast. So I don't think people really made the DeSantis association, because even at first, even I did, and I was just kind of like, what? And I was like, just 3-inch heels. But I think he could have landed that joke if he would have said 3-inch flats.
Yes,
so when he said heels, it was like, I don't think he's going after DeSantis.
Right, I agree. But I will say, aside from that, I think you're spot on. I think that, and here's what this represents to me. Vivek is a stand-in for Trump. He is setting himself up to be a position in the cabinet, a VP, or more likely a future face of what the MAGA movement might become. The truth is, I think Vivek finds Nikki Haley's policies loathsome. I think that he probably likes DeSantis and agrees with a lot of DeSantis policies. And that's the truth of MAGA and DeSantis. DeSantis is far closer to the good ideas of MAGA than someone like Nikki Haley. So if you're Vivek and you're like, okay, who is more of a threat to the policies I would like to see put out? Ron DeSantis is going to agree with Vivek on 80 to 85% of stuff. But Nikki Haley? And so I think that, as someone who wants to see DeSantis step up, because I think it's a two-person race, it's Trump and DeSantis, Like, I was happy to see Vivek, who I thought was having the best debate performance. Instead of, he certainly had jabs in on DeSantis, but it comes across as he's agreeing with DeSantis on some issues. And there was even, I saw Steve Deese was reporting this. He's a DeSantis fan, someone who I like, and he was at the debate. And he said in between breaks, DeSantis and Vivek are talking like chums. Like, they're yucking it up, and and Haley and Christie are talking like they're chums, right? And that about sums it up. Haley and Christie basically have the same positions, and DeSantis and Vivek have similar positions. Obviously, there are differences. So I'm glad to see that as someone who would vote for either Trump or DeSantis, that the stand-in for Trump, when it's not a petty pissing match, making fun of people's boots and things like that, actually, policy-wise, what they stand for is sort of a change from the old guard Republicanism. So I think you're very astute to point that out. And I was happy to see that.
Rob, you think the polling is going to change in regards to Haley and Vivek? Because last I checked, I think, not that I even put much faith in polls, but do you think this is going to bump Vivek up over Haley?
No. I think the problem with the polling for Vivek is going to be, his big problem is, again, who is the person out there that's going to say Vivek's my number one choice while Trump's in the race? He sounds too much like Trump, right? And so people are correct. Like, he is Trump on the stage. I agree with you. More articulate, more reserved when he needs to be, So I think he's hit his plateau with polling numbers. I think after that first debate, when people that didn't know him were like, wow, this guy sounds good, that was probably the high water mark around there. I do think Haley, there is a push in the old guard establishment Republicans that they want Haley to be the person. They don't want it to be Ron DeSantis. They certainly don't want it to be Trump. And so I think that you will see in a push in these polls with institutional type people that are going to say, Haley did great. They say it after every debate, and I'm left like, well, okay, she did okay, but they're making her sound like, she's the second coming of Reagan or something. So I do expect, I would not be surprised to see the polls show Haley nudging closer to or past DeSantis after this. But you're right not to trust the polls. If you're a DeSantis fan, you're already saying the polls shouldn't be trusted anyways, because the polls basically say the race is over and Trump's going to win. And we see that wasn't necessarily the case in 2016 when the polls were saying Trump didn't have a chance and he ended up winning. So I think Haley will get a bump in the polls. I think DeSantis will maybe get a slight bump, but I think Haley will get more than him. But I don't see Vivek getting a bump.
Man, I got to disagree with you on that one. I think, let's, in my disagreement, I'll go ahead and lead with Nikki Haley's performance. And this is why I tied into that. I think Nikki Haley last night just completely took the mask and cloak off and revealed her true neocon warmongering self last night. I think there was no denying it after this. Like, you clearly see like the horns creeping through the back of her head and her eyes turning red, and then the sounds of boots marching and Hitler playing in the background. She made herself fully known. And I'm glad she did, though, because people need to see her for who exactly she is. She says in one hand she has, look, we don't want to go to war with China because manufacturing. So what we're going to do is we're going to attack them economically. We're going to go to war with China economic, because that's what we should be doing. And then on the other hand, say war with Russia. Like, I don't get your positioning here. Like, if you want to have a justified war, I understand that. But what's going on with this proxy war with Russia is draining the economy. It's like, this is U.S. taxpayer funded. We're funding a suspension of democracy. The corruption in Ukraine is undeniable. And it just blew my mind. And she even talked about, she said, what's to stop Putin from invading the Balkan states? Well, Nikki, the Balkan states are 100% reliant on Russian oil. They're even NATO members. They know where their bread is buttered. Like, they got the best of both worlds, but they are certainly not going to cross Russia. So this whole thing of Putin's trying to expand, he's trying to reestablish the Soviet Union, maybe, perhaps, I don't know, but Ukraine and them, that's not our issue. But then when it comes to China, well, then suddenly it's like, we'll do it economically. We'll do now. Like, this woman, I guess she feels like she's stealing from Peter to pay Paul. She's not consistent, except in this fact that she does want war to a degree. And I don't like that about her. The fact that, like you said before, her buddying with Christie, who was also warmongering like crazy up there. I mean, that is the old guard, that's the establishment. But I feel in so doing and identifying herself as the old guard establishment, primarily neocon, that's going to repel a lot of GOP voters. Because even with the old guard, the establishment, the boomers, if you will, even they are fed up with forever wars. And that's what they think when they see those two. So As far as the polls over DeSantis, I have to disagree because I think, and I don't want to get to DeSantis yet, but I think his responses to a lot of those foreign policy questions were dead on the money. They didn't come off as isolationists, but still in the point of like, if you screw with us, we will retaliate. Whereas in Nikki, it was just like, stand by for deployment orders because they're coming, because this woman's going to get us into World War III. So that's why I disagree with you on. What do you think on that, Rob?
Yeah, so I'll talk about Haley specifically. I actually thought Haley had the second best performance of the night after Vivek, and I'll explain why. To me, it's about what is your goal going into this debate. Nikki Haley's goal is to be the runner-up. Nikki Haley she understands that her greatest opposition isn't Donald Trump. It's Ron DeSantis. If she has a chance to win the nomination, it's because she overtakes DeSantis and then something bad happens to Trump. He's kept off the ballots. His legal troubles mean that he has to drop out. Health problems, anything like that. That's Haley's best option. The secondary goal of Haley is she wants to do what Christie's trying to do, except she does it much better, which is to be the face of the old George W. Bush, Paul Ryan, Mitt Romney, of face of that party. And I think she does both of those goals very well. She is my least favorite person on this stage. I mean, you mentioned her foreign policy when it comes to China and Russia. How about Iran? I mean, she literally said we would attack Iran. That's World War III. That's what she's calling for. Simultaneously, she talks about how inflation and massive spending and things like that are out of control. This sounds like the Republican Party I grew up with that can't be honest. They're like, we're going to do this. We'll have this war and more military bases here, and we'll build more ships, and we'll have more programs to do this. But we're going to lower your taxes and cut the deficit. Well, that's not the way it works. That's why I was a Ron Paul fan. Ron Paul told you uncomfortable truths. Yeah, we're going to have to tighten our belt. That means less programs, less spending, because we've spent out of control. But that's the only way to get things in hand. I appreciate that sort of honesty, even if it's not the best to get you elected. Nikki Haley represents the opposite of that. But I think she was smart to focus on attacking DeSantis. And I think it was to DeSantis' detriment, as we'll get to when we get to DeSantis, because you come away thinking the battle's between Nikki Haley and DeSantis. That's not what DeSantis wanted out of this debate. He wanted it to be the battle is me versus Trump, and I'm better than Trump. But because she was smart to focus our attacks on him, I think it led for a tit for tat that was sort of something that she wanted. I thought she had the best answer on abortion for the general election, not necessarily for the primary. Everybody knows this. I'm not breaking earth-shattering news. In the primary, you tend to talk more to the extremes of your party, and in the general, you're trying to talk more to moderates. So right now in the primary, when it comes to abortion, the majority of Republicans are pretty staunchly pro-life. They might vary in their mileage, whether they want, a heartbeat bill or something like that. But in the general election, Nikki Haley gave the answer that I was hoping that other people would give, where she basically says, I'm not attacking pro-choice voters. I think that they have legitimate concerns. I take their worries about bodily autonomy seriously. And we also have to be pragmatic as the leader of the party, what the Senate would pass. And I think she does a very good job, like when she's going back at people saying, like, listen, there's just not the votes in the Senate. So what good will it be for me as a president to say, yeah, I'll pass a heartbeat bill, I'll pass a 15-week bill, and the Senate's not, even if you veto it, the Senate will override it. It's just not going to happen. So I thought that those answers were good. So in a nutshell, I thought she accomplished what she set out to pretty well, but I hate her. And I'm worried that wing of the party will come back to a position of prominence. I don't want to see World War III. I don't want to see this massive spending on overseas conflicts while claiming, oh, but don't worry, we'll be able to fix everything back at home. I hate this faux patriotism that you hear all the time. We're America. We could do it all. Dude, we have homeless veterans. We don't pay veterans for the health care that they deserve for the wars that we sent over to fight. We have people dying in mass of fentanyl overdoses. It's the leading cause of deaths between 18 and 45-year-olds. People in my community can't afford their rent or their mortgages anymore. So I'm sorry, I don't buy this faux patriotism of, we're going to go to war in this country, and we'll go to war in this country, and we can do everything because we're America. No, we can't. So I'm really rooting against Nikki Haley, but I have to call a spade, and I thought that her performance was decent.
All right. So the final one, I do want to go back to the setup she kind of stepped into was the fracking. I think when she took a jab at DeSantis on this one, I was like, because it trended on Twitter for a little while, and a lot of these candidates' political teams are watching Twitter. They're seeing what's trending. They're feeding that information back to their candidate because, like, hey, we got to be the voice of the people. So what are the people talking about? Let's address it in some way, shape, or form. I feel like the Everglade thing and the fracking thing was trending for a few days, at least in DeSantis Twitter. And what better way to do some research on your opposition than like going into their spaces, listening to their people, what are they talking about? So it was all over DeSantis Twitter. And so when she brought up the fracking thing again today with Florida, or yesterday with Florida, it's, you banned fracking. And DeSantis is like, well, it's the Everglades, Nikki. Yeah, of course we're going to ban it. Like, you can't frack in the Everglades.
Yeah.
And then she finished it off with, well, you banned fracking. To me, that felt like there was like, well, I'm going to tell Dad anyway. It came off very childish. Like, Nikki, you just took a hard L. Don't try and just like don't try and repeat the subject of it. You got made to look stupid. You walked right into it. So when she did that, I was like, you didn't do your research. It was a dumb move to make. It made her look stupid. Her attacks at DeSantis, I feel, the only one I feel that landed somewhat was the Chinese accusation of them owning land and stuff like that. And I don't say land in the sense of like I agree with it. I say from the get-go, but DeSantis rebuffed it very easily, very well. Nikki clearly, when he did that, it really made Nikki look really stupid because it's like you didn't do your research. You need to be able to have follow through on these accusations, and if you don't, it's gonna glance off. Like, two knights jousting and one lance blows or glances off the shield. That's exactly what happens with these. You've got to make sure they can land, and that's why at the beginning of the show I was like, DeSantis needs to stay away from engaging in the debates between Nikki Haley and Vivek. Don't get involved. Stay focused on Trump. And man, like Nikki and Vivek were just at it, and they would try and pull DeSantis in here and there. He did a good job at staying away from it, but the responses and jabs he gave Nikki, I feel like he landed them very well. They were very well placed. Like, don't take open or don't take pot shots you don't know or you don't think you can make, and he did it. So I was like, very well done. You show restraint. So with that being said, Rob, over to DeSantis, the final debater last night on the stage. What did you think?
So, yeah, I mean, the only reason to watch the debate for me was DeSantis. Now, that's a little untrue because it's also worth watching Vivek say things that you wish other candidates that have a chance would be saying, like attacking the media and stuff. But this is a race for me between DeSantis and Trump. And, we could sit here and talk about that. I understand strategically why Trump's not in the debates, but I wish he was, because I want to see the two people that I'm considering voting for hash it out. I want to see them duke it out on the specific issues. I wish it was just those two on the stage, but Trump's not going to do it. So,
do you think that's going to change, Rob? Do you think the sphere of influence is going to pull Trump into it, where people are like, hey, DeSantis is gaining steam. People are taking him more seriously. You need to debate this guy. Do you think that's going to change?
No, I don't at all. In fact, I don't know necessarily that I think that this debate had DeSantis gain steam. I think DeSantis in general is gaining steam. But I think that Trump is more than happy to have the perception be DeSantis versus Nikki Haley. I think, and that's, so I won't bury the lead. What I wanted from DeSantis in this debate was to command the presence on the stage, that he is the big dog on the stage, to be a leader, to be strong and clear with his answers, and to separate himself from Trump on every single issue. And when I say separate, I don't mean that he has to disagree. Like if Trump says give aid to Ukraine, DeSantis has to say no. He just needs to separate how this is why I would be better than Trump on every single issue. And there is a lot that was left on the table that he could have said, whether it be on abortion, whether it be on the economy and lockdowns and things like that. He does do a reasonable job on the TikTok topic. He mentioned Trump said he was going to do it. He didn't do anything. That's good. But I wish he was doing that. The first third of the debate, the opening statement of DeSantis is fine. It's overshadowed by Vivek's. But then I was very unimpressed with his performance up until the first break, because I felt that he wasn't taking the opportunity to separate himself from Donald Trump. And he's getting lost in the shuffle. And maybe this is an area of disagreement we'll have, and I really want to hear from the audience as well as to what they think about this. I think that DeSantis is listening to his team too much. And I think his team is telling him things that makes him not as authentic as he is. I love the Ron DeSantis that's in Florida when the media is trying to spread lies about him at press conferences, and he's calling them out on the spot. He's not smiling or, trying to be affable or worried about alienating people. He's right. He knows he's right. He knows more than these propagandist media people, and he lets them know. And he does so in a way that's not as ham-fisted as Trump, like, you're stupid, you're horrible, you're ugly. Like, he does so in a way that is on point and aggressive. I want that Ron DeSantis on the debate stage. Instead, I feel like I watched that debate. I couldn't tell you what his policy on Ukraine is, and I couldn't tell you what his policy on Iran is. It seems as if he's being told, don't say anything that's too strong or clear because you'll alienate people that disagree. So Ukraine, it's like, well, you send more money. He's like, well, some of the money that's going I don't like, you know. And let's be honest, there's a bunch of money that's being spent, like Biden spending money in a bunch of stupid ways. But like that, but what does that mean? Are you going to send more money? How long will you send it, etc.? Like you listen to Vivek, he's like, no money. Clear answer. You might disagree with that answer, but it's clear. You're not left wondering, I wonder what he was saying. The same with Iran. Would you attack Iran? Would you stop their infrastructure for Hezbollah? He's like, well, if they attack U.S. people, we would attack. But what does that mean? Because arguably that's already happened. You know, so I wish he was focused on Trump more than he would be on Nikki Haley. And I wish that he was just strong and I would respect it even if I disagree with his answer. I don't want ambiguity. He is the alpha dog. He is the guy that showed these media people that you could have the good parts of MAGA. You could be a populist. You could say, we're tired of these institutions and their corruption. We're tired of the Soros DAs. We're tired of the media. We're tired of corporations like Disney. And I don't care if it hurts your feelings. That's what I'm going to say. That's what I want on every issue. That's what I want on foreign policy. I think when it gets into the latter parts of the debate, once it starts talking about more domestic stuff, I actually thought he did a much better job. I thought his answer on the border was strong and concise and separated himself from Trump. That answer, the TikTok answer, those are the answers that I like. But unfortunately, I think that he kind of gets, if you're not already a big DeSantis fan, I think if you watch this debate, did he stand out? Did he stand out more than Nikki Haley or Vivek? I don't know.
Yeah, the reference you made initially to the Ron DeSantis who goes before the press and kind of really just slaps him around with it. That version, I won't disagree. I do like seeing that part because it feels like that's a representation of what the American people feel personified. The thing is, though, I don't want to see that all the time. That'd be like the same thing as like seeing ham-fisted, like you referenced Trump all the time. It got old really quick. So I kind of agree and I kind of slightly disagree that we need to have a leader that can put on both masks, flip that switch when it's necessary, be presidential, try and unify the country. I will concede the fact that he did not seem very charismatic last night, but that's also one of those things of like, that's just DeSantis. I feel like he is trying to get more animated with his hands and stuff. And I know this stuff doesn't really matter in the main, it's not policy, but I'm speaking the language of I want to say the average American we're seeing up there. I think what the DeSantis team needs to do is just accept him for who he is and let him be him. Don't like give him acting coaches. Let him be him. If he's awkward, fine. Let him be awkward. I don't care. I care about his policies. You know, the MAGA people, they'll ride him for like doing something with his hand. Who cares? It's like, don't try and change it because it's one of those things that I knew as a drill sergeant when it came to like marching, teaching soldiers how to march. What would happen is like when you're just trying to do like a standard left, right, left, right, left, they would always have their arms in unison with the leg that's stepping. So they'd step with the left leg and then sway the left arm forward, and it looked just really stupid. It was called monster mashing. And I say that because it's like when you would try to fix them, their brain just isn't wired that way. So they come off looking way more awkward trying to look natural and normal. It's like, look, just let it come. And I think that's the DeSantis case. I want to see more fire. I want to see more passion. But again, like I said, though, I think his answers in the first part of the debate were actually really good. I have to disagree. His stance on Ukraine, little fuzzy on the funding portion, but when it came to troops, he made that very clear because I made sure to really focus in on that because when it got brought up, I was like, this is his chance to finally clear the air because last debate, he wasn't clear. This one, I felt it was a little bit more clear, except maybe with the funding, I'd have to go back and listen to it again. When it came to abortion and stuff like that, he did give subtle, nuanced nods to state versus federal. I agree with him. I'd like to see him actually just scream that more. Not because I think he's wrong. I think that when it comes to something like abortion, you've got to shotgun blast that information to the audience. You can't just spoon feed it to them. They need to know crystal clear, like Rob said with Ukraine. Like they need to be very clear. So how Rob felt on the Ukraine issue, I kind of felt that way with the abortion issue. But I know I agree with him. I just want him to make sure it's just a little bit more louder, a little bit more concise. Because unless, like Rob said, though, like if you had never seen DeSantis before and you got him up on that stage tonight, or last night, are you really clear where he stands on abortion without piecing together the other debates? I know that's something that doesn't really matter to a lot of people, but with you have a lot of people tuning into these things for the first time. The closer we get to the primary, they're going to say, okay, well, let me start paying attention now. I know that doesn't matter to a lot of people that are like concurrent viewers, but yeah, overall, I think DeSantis did very well. His answers on policy, Rob said the border, 100% agree. He did, I'm not going to lie, while he was giving his answer, and he said, I'm going to make Mexico pay for it. It's like, oh, tell me, no, you didn't just say that. Oh, God. And then he followed it up with, well, basically, we're going to go after them economically. It's like, okay. I was like, thank God you recovered with that. Man, it's like, I was about to just shut off that stream. As if you just regurgitated Trump nonsense, bro, I'm leaving you. There ain't no way in hell. But I'm glad to see him turning around and say, but we're going to do this in the means of, like, we're going to tax trade even harder, which the libertarian in me is just kind of like, I don't know how I feel about that one either. But it's a much better answer than we're going to make Mexico pay for it. It's like, yeah, that's a crock of shit, dude. No, you're not. So I'm glad that he reversed on that one in a sense. It was a nice little feign on his part. If you were watching the stream last night, you saw me, like, my jaw was to the floor. I was like, he didn't just say that. But overall, policy was good. I do agree with Rob. Nikki and Vivek did steal the personality part of the show, but that's because they were squabbling like kids. I think that does work out to DeSantis' advantage. It's like, look, can I view this guy in a presidential lens? I think it can. Nikki Haley, I will concede to the fact that I think Nikki Haley would be tough. She would be a good representative of America. She definitely fills and I'm not even going to sugarcoat this. It's a man's world. Let's not even make any ifs or buts about it. It is a man's world. And that's not saying men are better than women. We just know it's a very difficult time for a lot of women out there to be competitive in a lot of things that men normally dominate in. So you have to come off as really, really alpha. And that's difficult for a lot of people to do. I think she does it very well. I think she'd be a very good negotiator. She would go to the table. She would not let people walk all over her. She'd be a formidable opponent. So I do respect Nikki in that aspect. I mean, you work in the UN for so long, you got to develop some thick skin. She's got it. But again, it's that warmongering part. It's like, no, you don't do it for me. I'm sorry. But overall, I think I have to agree with Rob, and Rob can finish on this one. And the total tally of how they did, I'll start with worst. I'm saying, Tim, boring as hell. Christie, Nikki, and then a close tie between Vivek and DeSantis as far as total overall performance. Rob, go ahead.
Yeah, I would put looking at what their goals were trying to accomplish, because I mean, clearly I think we could all understand, like, people like Tim Scott and Christie have zero chance. So outlining the goals, Christie's goal of being sort of the neocon, never Trump guy, I put him at dead last. I don't think he did a good job accomplishing it. Tim Scott, as someone who's an outsider, tried to corner the sort of religious grouping. I thought he came across as very benign and likable, but nothing really that stood out as strong leadership or anything like that. But he did mention the Bible a lot, so I put him second to last for kind of trying to carve out that niche market. I put DeSantis closely behind Nikki Haley at third because I think he needed to do a better job of being more forceful and strong and clear with his stances, focusing more on, he did a good, when he's best, he's talking about his record. That's why, listen, I know people listening are going to be like, oh, Rob's shitting on DeSantis. I'm still voting for DeSantis in the primary. I'm saying what I wanted him to accomplish to get more people to vote for him. I'm just being honest, and I think that when you just look at the policy, I think that he stands out as the clear favorite for me. But I understand charisma matters and clarity matters. And I think he needed to take a better opportunity to attack Donald Trump, not in petty ways, but literally attack him on those policies like he did on the TikTok question, like he did on the border question. I think that if he did that throughout the debate, he would have won this debate for me. But I put him at third. Nikki Haley as the heir apparent that wants to, for the neocon people, that wants to set up the party between her versus DeSantis in this runner-up. I thought she did a good job of cornering DeSantis in that she made it him attack her and her attack him. I thought her answer on abortion was the best for sort of a general election, maybe not so good in a primary, but and I loathe her. She would be the last person I would want to see because I think we would almost immediately get into another disastrous war like Iraq or a World War III type scenario. But I thought she did second best, and I thought Vivek did the best when his goal was sort of outlining how he's the heir apparent to MAGA. He has zero shot of winning because everything he says is just basically being a more a less repulsive MAGA candidate. That's what he is. But the people that like Vivek are going to say, yeah, he'll be good in the future. We're going to go with Trump. But I thought that he represented what the Republicans need to represent, especially that opening statement was phenomenal right? Calling out the RNC leadership for once more setting up a debate with moderators whose job it is to bury the Republicans. That's the job of MSNBC and NBC. That's their job. They prompt all sorts of hoaxes and conspiracies and whatever. They're garbage. They're not journalists. They're propagandists. And until the RNC learns to fight back, I thought Vivek was absolutely on point. Would Greg Gutfeld moderate a Democrat debate? Of course not. It should be people like Tucker or Steve Deese or, DeSantis influencers or Trump or people, whatever. Even Nikki Haley people. Those are the people that should be moderating the debates, not these garbage media people. So I liked what Vivek had to say. Coming away from it, I don't know how much it moves the needle because Trump wasn't there. I think Haley people are happy. They continue to get the mainstream press that wants to go back to the old uniparty, George Bush versus the Clintons. I think they're happy with Haley's performance, and I think that they're going to gaslight a lot of people. If you're watching the New York Times or CNN or whatever, there's going to be a lot of people saying Haley did the best because they don't want Trump and they don't want DeSantis, which ironically is something DeSantis should be out there talking about today because Trump's criticism of him is like, well, he's the establishment favorite. No, he's not. They don't want him, right? And I think DeSantis could use that to his benefit. But real quick, I'll just say on the abortion thing, John, and then I know we definitely want to get to people. I thought that the answer... I wish that I was able to talk to DeSantis people because I know in his heart DeSantis has the right answer on abortion. And that is, one, to articulate why he is pro-life and why that is important and the only moral position to have. Second, don't attack left-wing voters, though, because understand that their thoughts and fears thinking this isn't a baby. Screw the ones that say I'm for third trimester abortions. Don't even attempt to get them. But the people that are worried about, but you're going to control my body, DeSantis has the answer to that. Which governor in this country cared more about my body, my choice than Ron DeSantis? When it was massively unpopular and he was being attacked as leading to the next apocalypse, he opened the state. When Trump was warning people not to open the state, he opened the state because he cares about your individual liberty. Like that, I think if he does that, and then the third part and the most important part is highlight how grotesque the Democrat position on abortion is. They're not the party of safe, legal, and rare. They're the party of no restrictions ever, and they want to murder. Now, I thought he did a decent job of highlighting the story of the judge he appointed that was the person that was going to be aborted and now went on to be this great person. I think that's a great answer, and obviously you're limited in time here, but as he crafts this message going forward, I hope that he goes on the offense because the Democrats are grotesque, and the average person probably doesn't think we should have no abortions whatsoever, but they will be more appalled by the Democrat position, which is, abortions whenever you want. So, but yeah, that's my thoughts.
It has been interesting to see the debates going on within the GOP in the span of the last 48 hours, because even people like Tommy Lahren are saying that we have to give ground to the left on this issue. A lot of people are in firm opposition to this. There was a tweet that we talked about on the show yesterday talking about that, look, there are a lot of governors out there that have had hardline approaches to abortion that have still won, and in some cases double digits, election and re-election. So it does call into question, is abortion the issue that is really paramount here? Or is this something that basically a state like Ohio, that's a swing state, goes after they vote in favor of it? It's like, but is this going to be a ripple effect across all the other states? It's like, I don't know. I generally don't know. I know in red states, probably not so much. In a swing state, a blue state, I mean, of course, it's to be expected to a degree. But I do wonder if taking abortion and saying, look, this should be an issue. It's not. I don't wonder. I know for a fact this should not be an issue that you were going to concede ground to the left on. Number one, it does violate the very principles of believing in actual pro-life. I understand that people say that we need to discuss this to potentially win future elections. Well, then it's like, well, then how much of the carcass do you let the hyenas nibble on before you wake up and start attacking back? Or do you just continue to let them eat at you? Because the biggest reference that I think comes to mind is look at the Second Amendment. How many times have we given ground over and repeatedly? And then what? We got 23,000 gun laws on the books now. It's like, that's just giving ground. And it's the same thing you're doing with abortion. It's like, look, I understand that we should be focusing on winning elections, but the abortion issue, I don't think we should be conceding ground. There are many different avenues that we can take, candidate quality, things such as that, people that actually embrace constitutional values. I think these are things that could help us actually win elections, not picking morons with the likes of Oz, Herschel Walker. It's like, come on, let's get some serious people up here that actually represent. Give me leaders. I want leaders, not social media superstars. I want actual leaders with balls. And I will say this in full confidence. I want 2015 Trump up there. That's who I want, but not to the extent of like 2023 Trump. Give me a leader that actually has balls, that says fuck you to the American people, or to the our enemies, whatever the case may be, that says like, look, these are my stances. I'm not going to feel bad. I don't think Trump does that anymore, but I want a leader that's going to be very similar, but knows when to rein it in and flip that switch. I think DeSantis can do it, but he is certainly not as charismatic as Trump. But yeah, that's just one of those things that I feel like when you take a step back, you have to ask yourself, you know, how many issues in total, like when you really think about it, from let's just say the dawn of the GOP, if you can, how much have we conceded ground to the left? And in certain areas, probably warranted and justified to a degree, because it's like, look, you know, to embrace the very ideals of liberty, you're going to have to give people the one thing that a lot of people on the left don't like, and that's freedom. Now, the people on the right, it's like, but it's also freedom from the government. It's freedom from religion. And so that's where the GOP has to modernize a little bit, and it has done a good job at doing that. But it just feels like with that evolution, how much is too much? And I don't feel like the abortion issue is one of those things that we should concede any ground on.
Yeah, I mean, it's very difficult. This is what listen, I talk about this a lot in my show. I don't want to like try to sound like philosophically minded or something. I'm as simple as a dumb redneck as you ever meet. I'm a bad redneck, but like I'm not some deep thinker or anything, right? But at the end of the day, we're all going to die. We are. The things that are important to your relationship with God, your relationship with your family, your loved ones, and things like that. You can't sacrifice who you are to win an election. If you truly believe that it's a baby, how am I going, even if I disagree with you, I'm not saying I do, but if you truly believe that 3-day-old, fetus is a baby, like, how am I going to, in good faith, convince you, like, yeah, but to win elections, you should murder that? Like, I can't ask people that. And you shouldn't sacrifice who you are as a person. And I'm sorry, it's difficult. I understand the people like Mike Cernovich that are out there that are saying like, okay, well then you're just going to lose again and again and again. That's what's going to happen. I don't think that's the case. I think that I could articulate that that there will end up being some compromise, even if the pro-life people don't like it, and that will result in more babies being saved. But there is a way to have these positions and not change them, but frame them in an honest way that shows the undecided or the independent or the moderate person why you're more correct and closer to their beliefs than the opposition. I firmly believe that the majority of this country is closer to the Republican position of pro-life, heartbeat bill or something than they are to the Democrat position of abortions can happen whenever, wherever, for any reason, even the day before the delivery date. That is grotesque. And I think that you don't have to change your position if you're Ron DeSantis, or if you're a Christian, or if you're any of these other candidates. You don't have to change your position and sacrifice what your integrity and what you truly are, while also being able to frame the question in a way that it's not that much of a liability. And it's not as if Republicans have to win this issue. That, oh my God, 95% people are like, yep, Republican, this is my biggest issue, and Republicans are crushing the issue. All they need to do is argue that they're acceptable enough, that they're not going to be Handmaid's Tale, and that the other side is grotesque enough that, well, that's not going to really be my primary reason for voting. Let's look to the economy. Well, they're crushing that argument. Let's look to the border. Well, they're crushing that argument. So for me, I would like to see DeSantis and all the candidates do more going forward. I thought Nikki Haley's answer was pretty good, though she could have been better on why exactly she is pro-life and what that means, like why she would never, celebrate or allow any abortion in her life. But it is what it is. So that's my thought on the abortion issue. I will say this. I think people are putting more stock into it than is necessary. I think there are a lot of other issues. Granted, every issue matters in an election that's likely to be decided by 50, 60,000 people, which the presidential election probably will again. So I get that point of it. But, there's so many other issues. And I think anytime there's a loss, like there was the other day there, Tuesday, that people want to like say, this is the one issue, this is the one thing. And if we change it, and oftentimes what happens is there's a hyper focus on that issue that gets it blown to a bigger proportion than it actually is. So
Very well said. All right, we're gonna go ahead and go to hands. If you'd like to speak, go ahead and request it. We'll go by hands on this one. H. Joseph, go ahead, sir.
Hey guys, yeah. So just wanted to kind of maybe riff off a few things you guys were saying. First and foremost for me is that like I think that DeSantis, his goal wasn't to, I mean, if you look at a poll that came out by JL Partners today, that was Daily Mail co-sponsored, whatever. They were talking about it on Fox Business this morning. DeSantis absolutely won that debate, crushed that debate. And I think it was like 56%, or Haley was 35%, and then Vivek was below that. Point is that DeSantis threaded the needle to where somebody like Rob was okay. Like he didn't say anything that took him out of supporting him, but DeSantis didn't say anything that would, he's basically trying to scoop up all the Nikki Haley voters too, right? He's trying to thread the needle and be the hybrid candidate right now, and get those voters onto his side. If you want to see Ron DeSantis, the guy that was in Florida in 2021, 2022, you're going to see that guy plenty in a general election or a one-on-one debate versus Donald Trump or versus Joe Biden for that matter. You're not going to see that right now as he's trying to be an alternative to Tim Scott voters that he's about out to Christie voters to and obviously trying to make the same argument of inevitability of to Nikki Haley voters and getting a conglomerate. And that's why you're seeing why you saw DeSantis show restraint last night. Nikki Haley tried to get him. Again, I thought she looked like a petulant child after he said, "Yeah, I'm not gonna drill in the Everglades," and then she's like, "Well, you still did it, right?" Like that was her trying to prove a point versus what most people would think. Most people don't want to see fracking in the Everglades. But she tried to do that. She tried to get that. Vivek. I mean, I saw a lot of people. Like I saw one specific Vivek's or Nikki Haley supporter that was mad that Ron didn't have the balls to defend himself against the slide of the heel comment of Vivek. But it didn't land, for one. And two, why open yourself up even more? Because Nikki Haley because it didn't land, one, and then Nikki Haley, no one understood it. So why leave yourself open there? So he didn't do it. Again, DeSantis walked away from that, not getting owned by anybody, right? Haley and Vivek, were the petulant children in the room. They honestly dislike each other, and that was apparent in the debate. As far as the Tim, I mean, listen, I don't think Tim Scott could put a sentence together or make a coherent point all night. I don't know why he's there. It was sad to see him up on stage. I mean, listen, how many times was he like, only a minute deep or 2 minutes deep when the point he was trying to make was probably a 5-minute long answer. It was kind of a joke. Christie seemed like his whole reason for being in the debates was to own Trump, right? Well, he didn't even bring up Trump once last night. The only person that even had the balls to attack Trump was Ron DeSantis. So there's been a big shift as far as all of that goes. Where no one's even trying to be a alternative to Trump in that debate, other than Ron DeSantis at this point. So I think, listen, Christie looked. From an aesthetics perspective, he looked kind of old, and I think he's lost his step in his his coherent point making. I don't believe he's the same guy as he was 10 years ago or 11 years ago. I don't believe he's the same guy he was even 2016. He's just not. He's just older, and he's just not as sharp. So I think those two guys need to get off the stage. Vivek, I think he did score a good point going against the media. I think him going after Rona. I wish DeSantis would have said something about Rona. I mean, I'm glad he at least brought up the elections and tied it to Trump. But I'm glad that I'm glad that he, I liked what Vivek did there. But I'll say that Nikki Haley came off as a neocon, like a really bad, like she wants to. I think Will Chamberlain said, if Nikki Haley's president, she's gonna bomb Ohio because Vivek's there, right? Like
Did you see that one where they said that Nikki Haley looks like everybody's ex-wife?
I mean, listen, listen. I'll give Nikki credit. She has a lot of facts, especially about foreign policy. She has a lot of facts about, and she brings them and she speaks eloquently. There's no doubt about any of that stuff. But in general, she's trying to. She came off as. You're right, John. She came off as like, the first thing I'm going to come into office and do is like start a war with Iran. Like that's how she came off. And I just don't think that, I even think that even some of the neocons are just like, probably like, hold on, Nikki, geez. Like, like we need to get Congress involved here. We can't just start going to war with people. So yeah, I mean, that's how I kind of look at it. I think that, there's a lot of people out there saying, Vivek's did great online, but those are populist people that are, in the MAGA sphere on Twitter. That's not real normal Republican people, right? And that's what we have to understand that DeSantis was going after last night. He was going after, conservative, normal Republican people that are on the spectrum of Nikki Haley Warhawk that support Ukraine, to populist people that want nothing to do with, supporting Israel or Ukraine, right? And he was trying to thread that needle, and I think he did it exceptionally well. So that's kind of where I'm kind of going to come at it.
So a couple things. Like I think a lot of your takes are very similar to what I have. I'm just disagreeing on what the outcome was or what the goal was going into the debate for someone like Ron DeSantis. I think that if I'm working on Ron DeSantis' campaign, I'm telling him, this is you and Trump. You might as well see 4 empty podiums up there. It's okay to, if someone attacks you, to briefly deal with it. Take it back to Trump, right? And you could do so in a way, because the people that are watching, listen, I don't care how much people like DeSantis or anything like that. The fact that Trump's not on that stage diminishes the importance of these debates by 80%. Like, it just does. Trump is still the front runner. It's going to be Trump versus someone. That someone's going to be DeSantis. But arguably, Haley would say, we think it'll be Trump versus Haley. But everybody knows it's going to be Trump versus, right? And so your goal is to stand out by separating yourself to voters that are watching, that are deciding right now who is best to because there's 2 types of voters that he needs to get. The people that just despise Trump and are undecided on who's the best person to take him out, Nikki Haley or DeSantis. Well, DeSantis helps himself by standing forcefully out against, which I agree with you, he did a better job of Haley, right? But he could have done much better, because the other group is the people trying to decide between Trump and DeSantis. And that group, the reason that John and everyone else knows that Trump doesn't want to debate DeSantis is because DeSantis actually has policy that he could point to and say, I accomplished what Trump claimed he was going to try to accomplish. Now let's look at Trump's record. Let's look at Trump defend his record. Trump's fiery approach in 2016 is similar to Vivek's, in that because they are outsiders and they weren't elected politicians previously, they don't have a record. Now, that could be a weakness, but it could also be a strength, because people can't point and say, dude, you said you were going to drain the swamp and make Mexico pay for the wall. You didn't do it. You failed miserably, right? Now Trump has to deal with that. So he doesn't want to deal with it. And that's why that should be the sign to DeSantis. Every single issue, I'm going to point out Trump's weakness. You don't do it in a way to alienate the average MAGA voter. You don't have to say, I personally hate Trump. He dyes his hair. I don't like his wife. You don't have to do that. You could say, yeah, he said the right things. He stood for things like draining the swamp and stuff. That's all good. Who actually did it? Who actually has a plan to do it going forward? That's me. That's Ron DeSantis. And I do think DeSantis did a great job of saying, he said this line over and over, and I know what he's trying to say. He could have been a little more clear about it. He kept saying, I'll take the slings and arrows. And what he's saying is, I'm not going to go lowbrow. I'm not going to sit here and be like, what kind of shoes is Donald Trump wearing today? I ain't going to do that. And if that's what it means to come on this stage and advocate for the American people, fine. You go ahead, you insult me. I'll take all the petty. That's good. That's what DeSantis should be saying. That's good. But I just think that, I'm not surprised. Look, I could point to polls too. There were, the Drudge poll said that Nikki Haley won convincingly. You could say that's online. That's less scientific. Probably. I don't know what the JL Partners poll, what their methodology was. I saw other polls. The CNN Straw poll said that Haley won convincingly. So, I mean, polls, I don't buy polls. I think that especially in the immediate, I think that they just go whatever direction the people holding the poll wants it to go. That's my honest belief. But I could certainly see how a person could have came out of that debate saying, look, Vivek attacks the right things, but the dude's like a child. He's not presidential. Christie and Scott are non-factors. And when it becomes between Haley and DeSantis, who's a more serious candidate, I'm going to go with the guy that doesn't want to start World War III. So I could see how a person could say, yeah, he won the debate. That wasn't DeSantis' goal. DeSantis shouldn't have been satisfied to win the debate. DeSantis needed to win the argument against Donald Trump, to use the debate as a platform to juxtapose his policies with Donald Trump. And although he may have done a better job than Christie or Nikki Haley, I don't think, to me, the average person that doesn't follow this as much as those on this space would come across perceptually saying, this is a battle between Nikki Haley and Ron DeSantis. And that is the exact opposite image that DeSantis wanted to portray. He should have been portraying the image that this is a battle between me and Donald Trump.
I mean, listen, I can completely understand your point. My only retort to that is right now he's trying to consolidate power and win at least second place and be the clear second place in the primary. He's trying to attract Nikki Haley voters, and he's trying to attract Tim Scott voters, and he's trying to attract a lot of these other voters to where that he gets within striking distance where, someone like Donald Trump is 41%, 42% in Iowa, that he's getting the other 60%. Right. So when he's I thought he had a very good opening line. Why isn't Donald Trump here talking about the debt that he spent, that he increased? Why isn't he talking about, the wall that he didn't get done and didn't pay for, or have Mexico pay for? Why isn't he here talking about a lot of the campaign promises that didn't happen, draining the swamp, etc.? And then he took little snides all night. Now you're right. He could have made it about me and Donald Trump all night. But again, I think he again threaded a needle of, I am a more competent, I am a more restrained, less hawkish, acceptable version to the neocon right. And I am still a populist at heart, to the folks that are kind of done with Trump's bullshit, and the people that are in that 58%, 60%. I am the candidate. I am the guy, and I think that again, I think he can. I think he still has a month and a half, 2 months for a closing argument on a lot of these things, but he still has to consolidate and take away voters from Nikki Haley. He has to take away voters from Tim Scott. He has to take away whatever 2 or 3% that is. He has to take away voters from a lot of these camps as much as possible until he makes his final, argument against Donald Trump. So again, I'm not saying that it was an ideal debate. I wish you'd have been a little bit more firebrand, like Vivek was, because let's be honest. DeSantis, has those same positions. He just was obviously trying to put on a little bit of a more presidential show. The jail partners, I believe, was actually polled and asked people if they, contacted people and asked them if they watched the debate and if they were a registered Republican. This is a registered Republican poll. So a little bit more, a little bit better screen. So with all that being said, though, in general, I think that, people are going to take away from it, what they will. I do think that Tim Scott and my biggest takeaways watching Tim Scott was cringe. This is cringe. I can't even understand him. And I just didn't feel that Christie had any reason to be there. And he showed it very low energy, just kind of like, whatever. He just wasn't. He didn't try to, either one of them didn't try to like get into it with anybody because they're just taking up space. So my point is that it'll be interesting to see how things play out in the next couple of weeks. I'm not sure if the you're a scum is going to hurt Nikki or help Nikki. But I think that I think that it was, I don't know if listen. I thought when I see two people going at each other, and when I see two people going at each other, and then I see somebody kind of moderate in the middle and kind of saying the right things and not really attacking. I mean, I think DeSantis only attacked Nikki on China. I don't think he attacked anybody else on anything else. You guys can prove me wrong there. But, I mean, and let's be honest, he didn't leave himself open to anything big either. I mean, I'll say this. When Nikki Haley said this guy shouldn't be president, right? To Vivek, like this guy, Putin and Zaire are loving the fact that this guy could be president, and everyone like kind of laughed, and you could see the anger in Vivek's face. Like it was a burn. Like it was like oof, and like that. None of that happened with DeSantis, and so I mean, from my perspective, like from that, I'll take that as a win. I'll take the fact that there wasn't any really big highs or lows, but he came off as the presidential one. So I'll leave it there.
I do want to interject the fact that the moderators, and I'll say it again, I said at the beginning of the space, the moderators actually did a good job, a lot better than Fox. I felt like the flow of the debate went very good. We didn't see, outside of Vivek and Nikki, like going round for round, we didn't see a lot of crosstalk. So it was like people were actually able to stay on point to a degree. But at the same time, COVID was never addressed. Trump was barely mentioned. I think the moderators are going to set the tone for the debate. So if the moderators aren't like pushing heavily on Trump, then if the debaters are going to continuously bring up Trump, it does almost kind of come across as, I'm not going to say petty or desperate, but you've got to reel that in. It's like, look, attack him, land the blows you can hit. Like the last two debates with Christie, everything was about Trump. And it's like, bro, you're coming off super petty, super angry. Hit him on the things that actually matter, or more importantly, are relevant to the conversation. And that's why I feel like all candidates actually did a good job not going after Trump too much, because he wasn't the topic of conversation. I felt like the fact that they didn't bring up the indictments was actually kind of big, regardless of where you stand on it. I mean, it's clearly an issue that's like, look, to be quite frank, I don't think Israel should have dominated the conversation as much as it did. I am kind of glad it did to a degree, because it's like, all right, we need to know where you stand here as well. I did like DeSantis' position on that. Nikki Haley, of course, it was just like to be expected. Vivek made his point very clear, but also this is the thing about Vivek. Give it 3 days, he'll flip flop. I mean, we've seen that so many times on Twitter. Like initially he was all about like against Israel, like hey, don't get involved, blah blah. And then he's like, no, I believe Israel can mount head-on pikes. Like, dude, you shifted course real quick. So Vivek's just one of those guys that like he's like the used car salesman. We all reference this so many different times. He's gonna tell you what you want to hear, and then again, on a lot of his policies flip flop. I mentioned RFK Jr. in a space last night in regards to flip flop. I highly suggest you take a look at where he stands now on college campus, freedom of speech being suppressed. And I was kind of like taken aback from it. And it was very eye opening to see just how quickly the First Amendment can be treaded on when people are starting to say things that you don't like. And just go look at his tweets because it was just very eye opening. I think that's going to do a massive disservice as far as people saying that he's going to pull votes from Trump or whoever the GOP nomination is. I think the left is going to embody that totally. They're going to love it. Because who else on the left is against banning hate speech? They're all for it. It's like anything that people say that we disagree with, ban it, censorship. That's what the left stands for. So I think that's really going to shape the future of the GOP debates as well, because I think it's a bigger voter pool to pull from now. So I don't know. But as far as the whole Trump thing went, I'm glad they didn't engage too much on it. Hit him where it hurts, which DeSantis did a few times, but he did not come across as overly desperate and going after Trump. It was well done. Plato Cigar, you asked to speak. Sarah, the floor is yours.
Hi. So I guess I just have a few things and I'm just going to jump off. But like to me, actually, Nikki Haley's performance last night was in my opinion, the worst that she's performed. Like, she's had better performances in other debates. Like, she was a lot more wishy-washy on the abortion question. Like, she said, I'm pro-life, but we got to keep in mind stuff, and then I'm going to sign a 15-week ban if I'm president. So, like, it just seemed like before she was like, oh, but I'm, you got to be more open for people who have pro-choice. So it was confusing. Whereas in other debates, she was more clear that, like, she was just going to leave that alone. And then the second thing is, like, the heel and ammunition comment was really weird. Just, like, did not know what she was talking about. Like, and then the third thing I had to point out was just that, to me, like, she basically said she was going to cut Social Security and tax younger people and force them to basically bear the brunt of that. And that didn't seem fair to people, who are millennials, right? Who are younger, who are just working hard. Like, they don't deserve to pay more for someone else's mishandling of finances. I don't think that seems right. But that's pretty much what she said she was going to do. So I just really didn't like that. And she did definitely became more bloodthirsty. I think DeSantis didn't do that great, but like, as compared to, like, other debates, I felt like he was slightly stronger in other debates. But then again, he wasn't really attacked as badly. I felt like with the abortion question, he kind of waffled too. Like, and I just want a straight answer from him. Like, are you going to ban it at the federal level or not? And just yes or no, are you going to do it? And I thought it actually helped DeSantis when Tim Scott kind of forced her to say yes, like, by calling her out, about it. And that's sort of where I came down on it. I just felt like she just seemed kind of cringe to me in this debate compared to other debates. I felt like she was too aggressive, and I felt like her answers made me doubt her more than they did before, especially on the Social Security thing, which I think affects a lot of people.
Fair enough. We've got Pix. Go ahead, sir.
I'm a girl, and I'm going to be brief. I just want to talk about flip-flopping Vivek. I'm not for or against Vivek. I do want to explain his point, though. Saying that Israel has the complete right to defend themselves does not mean that that we should be giving them financial aid or foreign aid or whatever it is. Most of the aid that we give them is supposed to coming back to some of the the defense and industrial complex. About 75% of whatever we give them is supposed to be going to the industrial complex for the defense or offense, as I call it. So that's his point. So yes, they can defend themselves on their own, but they should not be doing it with us. So that was his point yesterday. We should be making that point. We should be supporting the right to them to defend themselves. But that's dumb. That's a different country. It's supposed to be America first, not Israel first. That was my point.
I don't disagree. I think that's the exact right way to go about it. I think that I've had many debates on this topic and talked about it quite frequently. Even if there's an argument to be made for a unipolar world where the United States is sort of the world police because we are moral and just and we keep bad actors from doing bad things. Clearly, the people that run our military industrial complex and our intel agencies have lied to us over and over and over again for their own personal edification and gain, that they are no longer to be trusted as the actors responsible with doing that. So the best we could do at this point is to use the resources at our disposal to first and foremost protect and benefit the people of the United States. I don't care if you're Republican, Democrat, black, white, Christian, atheist, Muslim, I don't care. Our government should be working for you if you're a U.S. citizen. And it's telling to me that even Mike Johnson, the new Speaker of the House, the first thing he talks about publicly when he comes in is, well, we got to send more money to Israel. We got to help Israel. What about your constituents? And I'm sick and tired of it. And I think the average American's tired of it too. We're tired of, I wrote an article once for John's website there. It was like, why is it that every time something happens, that it's COVID or Ukraine or Israel, why is it always the middle and lower class people that have to make sacrifices? It's our sons and daughters that go to fight. It's people like John that go to fight. It ain't the politicians. It ain't the incredibly wealthy. They're not the ones that are worried they're going to have to pay more for gas, or the massive spending will cause inflation, which means they won't be able to pay their rent. It's always the average person that's asked to say, oh, you got to sacrifice more. When they had lockdown restrictions, it wasn't Gavin Newsom that was restricted. He still went to the French Laundry. He didn't care. Nancy Pelosi still had her ice cream, or refrigerators full of ice cream. It was us. It was the normal person that you couldn't go to your daughter's wedding, or you couldn't have a funeral for your father that passed away, or you couldn't go see your grandparents in the nursing home. Your kids couldn't go to school. It's always that no one had, and that's why it's effective, right? When Donald Trump says like America first or make America great again, it might be bullshit. It might just be pure rhetoric that he's not going to follow through. But people are desperate to hear. That's how bad our politicians have been for decades. People are desperate for anyone to say even nice words about them, to say, yeah, we got your back, even if it's just garbage, even if they're not actually following through on it. You know, one of the comments I made last night, it was amazing to see how quick everyone was to weigh in on, oh my goodness, anti-Semitic attacks on campuses. And not just the physical attacks, but also sort of the things that we're teaching these kids on campus. Where have you been for 30 years? Need I show you courses? You could literally take courses on anti-whiteness. Where are they? That was okay. No one talked about not sending donations to Harvard when people in Harvard were teaching kids that white people or Christians or men are evil. But all of a sudden it's like, oh, anti-Semitism. Oh my goodness, that's beyond the pale. I'm tired of it. And that doesn't mean that I don't think that Hamas is grotesque and that there aren't serious people in this country in positions of power that absolutely despise anyone that's Jewish. That's all true. And as a Jewish person, you absolutely have the right to say this is grotesque. And as a country, we have a right to say it's grotesque. However, it's amazing how it's selective. It seems that our politicians are more concerned about Israel's border than our border. And so, you know, I do think that, you know, that there obviously is a place for foreign policy, and obviously politicians are going to ask those questions. It's one of the reasons that I do agree with John. This was the best moderation in these three debates, only because Fox is so bad. But God, I'm so tired. There's no questions about the corruption of Biden. There's no questions about the corruption of our institutions, right? The job of these people at the end of the day is going to be to bury whoever the eventual Republican candidate is, unless it's Nikki Haley, right? They're going to bury Ron DeSantis. They're going to bury Donald Trump. They would bury Vivek. That's what they're going to do. So to allow them to control the question, so there's very little criticism of Joe Biden or of the media itself's role in how they weigh in on these things. And it seemed like, I mean, they top loaded with foreign policy, and, you know, what about Ukraine? What about Taiwan? What about Iran? What about Israel? You know, and it's like, yeah, what about our country? Those are the questions I'm more interested in. Granted, it's nice to hear that Nikki Haley's trying to get us into World War III, so we know not to vote for her. But, so yeah, I agree with you. My position on this is absolutely Israel has the right to defend themselves. They have the capability to do such. I could say that Hamas is grotesque and Israel has the right to defend themselves, but we shouldn't be sending money. We shouldn't be sending troops.
Fully agree. All right, with that being said, if nobody else has anything to say or add, I'm going to have to go ahead and end the space. I got to get ready for the show. Appreciate you, Rob. As always, we'll be doing this again tomorrow morning at 10 a.m. CST. Rob will be picking the topic of discussion or debate, whatever the case may be. So if you could retweet the space, we appreciate you guys being here. And then I will be going. I think, Rob, you're streaming live right now over on Twitch, if I'm not.
Yeah. I'll stream for another probably 20 minutes to a half an hour. I think the topic tomorrow is going to be, who is more handsome, John Burk or Rob Noerr? That's going to be the topic. So.
Oh, you put me in a. Oh, good Lord.
No, I'll come up with something. There's obviously plenty to talk about. Listen, I'm honored to do this. I think I love doing this. I look forward to it every Thursday, Friday. If I could just make a plea to the listeners, I guarantee there are those of you that are listening in this space right now that are just as smart or have just as important things to say as John and I and the great people that have go ahead and joined in on the space and talk. I could sit here and talk for 12 hours. Sometimes it's a blessing. Almost always it's a curse. We really want to hear from you, though, right? So, don't hesitate. It's real simple. Just, just ask requests to speak. Even if you disagree with John and I, that's all right. That's what this space is about. We're not snowflake lefties that think that you can't disagree with us. That's not who we are. So, but no, it's fun as always, and I'm looking forward to tomorrow. And if you all want to go over to my YouTube channel or to my Twitch channel, it's Normal America with Rob Noerr on YouTube. On Twitch, it's just Rob Noerr as you see spelled, and we'll talk for another 20, 30 minutes. So.
Appreciate you, my man. About to start streaming over on Rumble at John Burk. We go live at 12 p.m. CST Monday through Friday. And we'll be going more in depth on the post debates and some other interesting articles coming out about a CNN reporter embedded with Hamas prior and during the attack on Israel and some other things out there. So appreciate you guys. Thank you so much for being here. And I hope you have a wonderful day.
All right. Good space. Yeah, I don't think there was much disagreement. I think, correct me if I'm wrong, to the people that are listening to me now. Clearly that Spaces and John's audience are huge DeSantis fans. I fall into if I had to vote today, I would still vote for DeSantis in the primary. Certainly I'm going to support DeSantis or Trump, whoever wins the primary. But I think Vivek did the best in the debate. So I'm more middle of the ground. I think if you're predisposed to like a candidate, we all have bias, so it's always going to be sort of rose-colored glasses. But having said that, I think they know that DeSantis didn't knock it out of the park at least. Is it fair to say that based on their reaction? I don't think anyone was the one caller said, well, DeSantis won the poll, but even he admitted, yeah, there were things it wasn't even the DeSantis fans, I think, see it wasn't a crushing victory or anything like that. So, I stand by what I said. I thought Vivek won the debate. Now, does that mean Vivek won? Of course, that doesn't mean Vivek. It depends on what you mean by won the debate. Did Vivek set himself up in a position to win the primary? No, because he's not attacking Trump. I thought DeSantis did middle of the road. I don't think he said anything to really hurt his chances that much, but he didn't take advantage of the space to increase his chances. That's how I feel. It's if DeSantis wouldn't have been there, that's basically where the same position he would be in. Is what I would articulate. I wanted to say it is. I can't stress this enough. It's DeSantis' team, and DeSantis needs to say, it's me versus Trump. You could do so while being an adult in the room. You don't have to be petty. You don't have to scream. It's him versus Trump. Every issue. Yeah, I agree. I don't think DeSantis is a very strong debater, which is weird because I think he's incredibly strong when it comes to sort of arguing with the press when they're being dishonest about him. I think it has to do with I've noticed this. I've noticed people that are good arguers or good public speakers, but in the game of debate, like I played it in college, they struggled with it. And I think sometimes it has to do with the formalities of it, the rigid time structure, the only getting a minute or two to say what you want, right? The fact that it's a bunch of people talking. And so he's, maybe DeSantis is better if he could focus on a single argument or a single opposition. Maybe that's the case, but I've not been enthralled. Now, again, I think it's perfectly reasonable to say, looking at these five people, I think of those five, DeSantis separated himself in a way that I would most likely want to see him be the candidate. That's a reasonable position because maybe you're I don't like the things Vivek's saying, and I think that DeSantis comes off as more prepared and better on these issues for me than Nikki Haley, and the other two are basically just out of it. That's a reasonable position. But what I'm looking at is who set themselves up in the goals they were trying to achieve. And if DeSantis' goal was just to look better than Nikki Haley, that's a failure. It really is. That's part of the goal, but that's secondary. DeSantis needs to make him look good against Donald Trump. That's who he's running against. Who would rather have Nikki Haley or Gavin Newsom? Ugh. I saw one of the Krasensteins were I could actually see myself voting for Nikki Haley. Well, there's your cue. When prominent Democrat activists are saying that. Oh, 1 second. Man, I'm a bad typer. 1 second. So I'm arguing with, I will be wrapping up here before John starts his show. I'm arguing with one of the worst people I've debated. Do you remember this guy, Josiah the Pondering? First time he debated me was on vaccine mandates. He was shamed, had to admit that he didn't have a chance, and I'm sorry, I'll leave, I'll come back. Then he went in Destiny Show and said, I got blown up by Rob Noerr. Then he did a debate with Counterpoints and me versus him and Pisco on sort of the Burisma and corruption thing, and he just sits in the background and goes, yeah, Pisco crushed that debate. Now he likes to get jabs in, so as I'm going back and forth with Pisco, 5-alarm Pisco, fire alarm extraordinaire, that Jamal Bowman, he pulled that alarm. Don't believe your lying eyes. Is it true that hypothetically there is an alarm that could unlock a door? Well, then don't believe the video that shows that that was clearly not what Bowman was doing and that it was clearly a bullshit claim in the first place. Forget all that. Forget all that. Theoretically, this device exists, so... and then his little boy ruminate's going to be in the background like, yeah, great point, Pisco. Great point. Oh, man, Pisco, you're killing it. You're doing such a good job, man. Yeah. So let's see his... Someone asked me my thoughts on an article talking about James Comer, because our media, right, what I think is very funny, our media now, when we're looking into the Biden crime family, they didn't give a shit. The media didn't give a shit when it came to all the money from shell companies that was going to Biden while Biden was vice president, and after Biden was vice president, that was doing things that ended up benefiting, his brother and his son's connections, including Burisma, Chinese groups, etc. They didn't give a shit to look into that. In fact, they went right along with censoring the information from the laptop that they thought. But now they'll be like, oh, James Comer's looking into it. We're going to look into his family. First statement. Yes, if James Comer's family is doing illegal stuff, they should be prosecuted. What does that have to do with Biden? Did James Comer force the firing of a prosecutor that was looking into his family's business? Wow, that would be something I'd be that's what Biden did, right? Someone tags me in it, and Pisco goes, why would you tag him? He's a Republican shill. He'll always vote Republicans and defend this obvious, blatant, double standard bullshit, and everyone knows it. Now, that's Pisco. What we call that is gaslighting. Pisco is accusing me of exactly what he does. Will I always vote Republican? Did I in 2008? No. Did I in 2012? No. Did I in 2016? Yes, because there was a candidate that I thought finally went against the uniparty orthodoxy. Did I in 2020? Yes. Have I voted? Did I run at one point as a libertarian? Yes. So the idea that I'll only vote for Republicans is bullshit. The idea that I won't call out Republicans is bullshit. In fact, I call out Trump better than these stupid fucking lefties all the time, even when it was unpopular, even when he was president. I even call out when I think right-wingers go too far, calling for things like censorship, calling for things like going into these wars and things like that. I call that out. That's what I do. Pisco, on the other hand, will defend any amount of corruption, not necessarily just from the Democrats, but that entrenches the establishment institutions. So, for example, he'll make excuses for, well, just because the FBI illegally spied on Trump's team, it's not really that big of a deal. Well, just because there's an obvious double standard in how they prosecuted people connected to Trump, but allowed people that committed the same crimes only more blatantly under Hillary Clinton to get away with it, like deleting subpoenaed emails, I don't see the problem there. He thinks it's an insurrection. Every single person in January 6th, he was tweeting about it yesterday, they all deserve, we can't leave these dangerous criminals out of jail. That's a reason to reject Donald Trump. Those blue-haired grandmas that were walking peacefully through the Capitol, they must be in prison. We can't let them out. Yet where did they talk about May 30th, 31st, 2020, when violent lefties used Molotov cocktails to attack guard station? How many of them went to prison? Hear Pisco talking about the importance of putting those violent insurrectionists in prison? That's weird. I missed all that. I missed him talking about any of that. Thanks so much, Dex. Thanks for the cheer. Then when we have this Jamal Bowman case and people are like, why are you still talking about this case? Because I've literally spent 60, 70 hours arguing, if not longer, arguing against Pisco on all sorts of issues, and I enjoyed arguing with him. And when an issue comes out that's so blatant that he's literally initially tried to defend, well, maybe this guy pulled the fire alarm to unlock the door. That's the most likely scenario. Not that the alarm could cause a delay. That's not possible, even though that's exactly what happened. That's not possible, he said. That's just not possible. As absurd as it is to think that he pulled this alarm to open a door, that's more likely. What that does is he's a fucking bad faith hack. And I told you, if you go back and you watch that video, exactly why he was doing it. I said from day one, he'll say, yeah, charge him with the misdemeanor that you shouldn't pull a fire alarm. But he will vehemently argue against the charge of obstructing an official proceeding because that charge is what they use to look at the nonviolent January 6 people to call them insurrectionists. So you can't say that grandma that showed up to the Capitol that didn't engage in violence is an insurrectionist, but an actual congressperson who also sought to delay an official proceeding, well, he's just fine. He shouldn't be charged. And so when the video evidence comes out to prove me right, all Pisco had to say was, fuck yeah, Rob, you're absolutely right. Yeah, that's damning. Yep, it's clear that Bowman didn't try to go out the door. It's clear that he lied. It's clear that he lied to law enforcement. He should have been charged with lying with law enforcement. And he's at least should be, he's got that misdemeanor charge. I think that he should be investigated even harder to see if he officially obstructed an official proceeding, which he clearly did. But that's not what Pisco said. Instead, Pisco gaslights. Rob said alarms couldn't open doors. Couldn't unlock doors. No, I didn't. He said that over and over again until finally confronted with it, which I was like, okay, I'll bring you the evidence. And he's like, okay, you didn't say that. So he has to fucking change the topic. Well, I haven't debated him since. I've been making fun of him, right? So now we go back to sort of the idea of Biden crime family. So the media that could have gave a shit less about shell companies and money, didn't give a shit when it came to the Clinton Foundation, didn't give a shit when it came to the Bidens and all this money that's going around while he's issuing quid pro quos to force the firing of prosecutors looking at his son's company, didn't give a shit about any of that. But now they're like, oh, someone's looking into it. We're going to look into them. And now Five Alarm Pisco and the whatabouters, they'll be like, oh, what about this? With Comer, shell companies. Maybe Comer has shell companies. Fine, lock them up. I don't give a fuck. And anyways, back to Biden. You know, the president, you know, that forced the firing of a prosecutor when he was vice president looking into his son's company using $1 billion of your tax dollars. That guy who then almost all the media and intelligence agency colluded to stop that story from coming out into the 2020 election. You know that guy? Food Shops, if you go back to like the very first live comment on my panel here, someone just watched my debate with you and was commenting just how fucking unhinged and terrible you are, which you were. You're so bad. You're so bad. Somehow worse than Pisco even, because at least Pisco could formulate a coherent argument. Your big argument is after you were shamed, you went and prepared, and then you just literally said, but I read an article that says you're wrong. And then you just kept reading the article like that was some got you. Sure, CNN thinks that when Democrats commit crimes, it's no big deal. Great. You did it. You did it, dude. Pisco's worse faith, but he can at least formulate an argument. You know, Food Shops probably believes the dumb shit they believe. Anyways. So then ruminate, whatever the fuck he goes by now, he has to chime in then on this. When Pisco gaslights and says, I'm a Republican shill, always vote Republican and debate blatant double standards. That's what Pisco does. So he's just accusing me of what he does. Then look what Pondering chimes in with. Look at this. Condemn Trump for publicly demanding his DOJ investigate Biden. Condemn Trump for saying S president should be above the law. Condemn Trump for calling on his political media critics to be prosecuted. Support investigating Trump and Jared. He's okay with this. Do you understand what's going on here? This is the classic, but what if hypothetically Trump did what Biden's doing? Rob won't condemn that. Can you imagine, for example, if Donald Trump gets in office and uses his DOJ to investigate Biden? Wouldn't that be despicable? Wouldn't that be terrible? Can you imagine it? My goodness. What if Trump, for example, would, I don't know. What if he'd get FISA warrants based on opposition research that his team paid for, despite his political... Wouldn't that be terrible? Can you imagine if he did that? Wow. That'd be despicable. What if Trump started subpoenaing media people and politicians that he didn't agree with? Wouldn't that'd be horrible, right? My God, how would we survive as a country? Oh, that's what Biden's team's doing right now? Tell me about Steve Bannon being held in contempt. How about Project Veritas, James O'Keefe's house being raided by the FBI? That'd be terrible. Imagine if Rob's terrible because what if Trump hypothetically did what Biden did and Rob wouldn't condemn it? Of course, they're not condemning what Biden's team's doing right now, which is not hypothetical. He's actually doing it. They're okay with it. Do you see who these people are? And these are people that are still like, I don't think Jabal Bowman pulled that fire alarm. He pulled it to try to leave. That's what he did. That's still their position. That it wasn't to cause a delay or distraction. Imagine having the nerve to call other people hacks when you're defending Bowman's interpretation of this video shows that he would pull the fire alarm to leave. Imagine it. Imagine the nerve and the hubris it takes to sit there and say, you won't call out your side. You won't call out your side. Here he pulls the fire alarm. Yeah, he pulled that alarm to try to get out those doors. That's who I'm arguing with. That's who I'm arguing with. And they know they don't have an argument. So what they do is just gaslight. Oh, you won't call out your side. You won't call out your side. And isn't it true that fire alarms technically could sometimes unlock a door? Isn't that true? And you won't call out your side. Rob's bad faith. Just watch it again and again and again. The people that I argue with on a daily basis on here, the people that you're probably arguing with on Twitter, they think this is a guy pulling a fire alarm to try to exit a door. Watch again. Just watch it. Why does he pull down the signs if he's just trying to get out the door? We don't know. That's a guy trying to get out the door. Pulled the alarm to get out the door. Don't believe your lying eyes. Don't believe your lying eyes. Don't believe it. That's the person you're arguing about. When you're like, I don't know, border security. And they're like, oh, we're good faith people. Yeah, we'll have a conversation. This is how bad faith they are. Nothing that those sacks of shit ever say again should be taken seriously. I don't know, evil. Is it evil? I don't know. I don't need to use biblical words. He's a person that believes the ends justify the mean. He has bad faith. So's ruminate. So are all the people that say this. Why does this issue matter? And I've had people say, why are you still focused on this? For two reasons. One, because this is the exact charge that's being used to say that there was an insurrection and all these people committed insurrection January 6th. So it shows you exactly what I've been focused on the whole time, the blatant fucking double standard of law enforcement. They know that January 6th wasn't an insurrection. They know that they're overcharging people. They know that it's political weaponization. They all know it. And they know if it happens on the other side, like Palestinian protesters breaking into Congress, that they're not going to charge them with obstructing an official proceeding and call it insurrection. They know on May 30th and 31st, when we had lefties that used Molotov cocktails to attack guards, injure guards, burn down a guard station in an attempt to get into the White House, they didn't call it an insurrection. They know that they're going to protect their side. And this is the most blatant, easy to see example for the average person to see how much fucking bullshit it is, which is why it should be being talked about by more people than just me. And second, it shows that the people on the left that claim to say, I don't see a double standard, there's nothing wrong here, are full of shit fucking liars. And everything they say should be taken in that context, that they don't give a fuck. They will lie right to your face because they feel that they are better than you. They feel that it's justified. They feel that what you want is immoral. The people you vote for is immoral. The candidates that you want are immoral. They don't believe in democracy. They totally support the weaponization of government. And they'll lie right to your face, which they don't mind lying either. It's all justified because they think they're better people than you. So they want the weaponization of government. They know that that's what is occurring, and they're okay with it. But they'll lie to you and tell you, I don't see it. I just don't see it. I don't see it. And yet, when you break down an easy to understand example, you can see just how bad faith they are. You can call it evil. I don't give a fuck. Not of Canada, would you like to call in and debate? He says it's evil to gaslight people and ignore the real problems while attempting to keep your 20 fans here. Cool. Would you like to call in and debate then? Let's talk about the real issues, right? We talk about the real issues that you have. Genocide happening now, voted for is not. Go ahead. You call in and talk about the real issues. Go ahead. You want to call in? You called me a Zionist. That was you that called me a Zionist. You want to call in? Now's your chance. You want to call in? You can explain the real issues. Go ahead. You're criticizing me talking to my 20 fans. You're right. I don't have a big audience, unlike you. You apparently have a huge audience, right? You're talking about the real important issues. You must have a huge audience. You must be very articulate. So you're going to call in now, right? You're going to get on the Discord and you're going to call in, right? You're going to show us your Twitter feed, and you're going to show us what you were saying on October 7th, right? Right? Surely you were calling out that violent terrorist attack from Hamas, right? Even if you think Israel's in the wrong in general, surely that's what you were doing. Okay, last chance. You calling in? Called me a Zionist for years. Yep. If you're not pro-Hamas, you're a Zionist. That's what Nada of Canada will have you believe. If you say, geez, I don't like Hamas butchering people, not playing the fake left-right game. Well, you're not playing any game, sir. See ya, coward. Why don't you go talk to your 20 fans? Oh, you don't have any. Start your own channel, big man. Right? You talk about the important issues. People have a lot to gain from listening to you. Right? You don't play the fake left-right game. You don't talk to just 20 people, right? You're a big tough guy. You call people out, only you're too fucking much of a coward to actually call in, right? When you get the detention that you so desperately deserve, because you can't defend your position. Because all you want to do is say anyone that doesn't agree with you and your terrorist simping fucking views that think that it's okay to be terrorist butchers just because you don't like the other side, then they must be a Zionist. Even if they articulate exactly all the problems they have with the undue influence of Israel on this nation. Even when they just got done doing a spaces where they said, we're tired of the fucking leaders of this country being corrupt and benefiting people of Israel instead of benefiting people of the United States. Yet you still call me a Zionist shill. That's what you do. Now you say you can't argue. No, what it is you could say I'm a shill. That's what someone who's desperate, that knows that they can't prove their side, that knows that they're fucking grotesque and a fucking moron, which is why you're incapable of building any sort of audience, even 20 people up yourself. That's what you say to cope, because you know you get the fucking doors blown off you. Because you know you're a fucking idiot that can't keep up. And so you have to cope so you can sleep good at night and saying, I'm just convinced that the other person's a shill and I could never convince them. See, I'm convinced that I could convince the objective person that you're a fucking idiot. You're not convinced that you could do the same of me because you know that you can't defend your position. And so you stand behind stupid bullshit rhetorical terms like, well, you're just a shill and I'm not going to believe. Even though I've given specific reasons to show why that it's absurd to say that I'm a Zionist shill, including only speaking today, not even up until the point I was engaged with you, talking anything negative about Palestine, but actually talking negative about the Israel's undue influence on the United States. Literally just got done with the space saying that, and your response is you're still a Zionist shill. And you're seeking to deflect from the issues I'm talking about to control the conversation because you think that me, who you should be someone, if you're upset with the United States backing Israel, should say, yeah, I think it's absurd that we clearly see this corruption and double standard that's led by people like the intelligence agencies in the military-industrial complex, and how they go after people in their own country that are opposition, that have said things like, we need to be worried about back home, we need to stop funding these foreign wars. Yeah, I can see how Rob would think that them putting their finger on the scale of elections would be bad, not just for the people of the United States, but also bad for people in Palestine, because we would see neocons and neolibs that want to continue to fund these sorts of wars would continue to get in positions of power because we couldn't have an actual election. But instead you say, no, forget all that shit. That's actually important shit that would change the results of the election and would lead to actual populists coming in control of this country that would say we need to stop interfering in places. And if you want to sit there and bitch about Israel and this, that, and the other, fine, you're free to do that. The United States isn't going to be arming them and giving them money. But you're unable to defend that fucking position. So instead what you do is you just say, I'll call you a shill because you're not pro-Hamas. That's what your strategy is going to be. And then you say that you're going to criticize, oh, you don't like the way the directions go. Well, you're going to criticize because I'm talking about gaslighting about fake issues and ignoring evil to my 20 people audience. Okay, well, I think it's pretty fucking evil to have people that are actually involved in stealing elections and locking up the opposition that wants a peaceful world, that doesn't want the funding of Israel, but you don't feel that way, apparently. You're more than happy. What this person would say is he'd be more than happy to have people elected that say, oh, Islamophobia, yeah, that's bad, that continue to fund Israel, that continue to fund any sort of war campaign against the people of Palestine. He'd be more than happy because at least then he could virtue signal that I'm against evil. I did that. I don't want people talking about the actual corrupt system and how voices aren't heard, which allows for this travesty of the United States politicians funding wars all across the world. I don't want to actually talk about how to solve that and ending that corruption that leads to that. I just want to virtue signal that I don't like evil. That's what I want to do. And then I want to pick on him because he only has an audience of 20 people. Absolutely, that's something that I should be picked on for. It's unfortunate that I don't have a bigger audience. Maybe it's because that I've just stuck to myself and I don't play just one side or the other. I'm not just a pro-Hamas or pro-Zionist shill. I criticize both sides when it's necessary, and the average fucking moron like you only will accept people that are 100% in their side on every issue. So maybe that's why. Maybe it's because I'm not that attractive. Maybe it's because I got an annoying fucking voice. Maybe it's because I don't stream consistently. Maybe it's because I have a life. I do this as a hobby. It's okay. But if that's where you think that you got me, that I'm only talking to 20 people, all I can say is my hat's off to you, sir, so you can see my bald head. Now, why don't you show me the audience you're speaking to? Let's see your channel. Go ahead. How many people are you speaking to right now? Can you link? Let's check your Twitch channel. Let's click on it. Let's see how many videos you've been doing, right? Huh, no videos, no followers. Well, how can that be? I mean, clearly someone that's taking the bold stance of actually calling out evil, who's going to call out other people that because they're only speaking to 20 people. Surely you have a massive audience. Who are you talking? Oh, you're begging for attention. You got it. You wanted to change the direction of what I was talking about. You got it. Now what do you have to say for yourself? Oh, I can't call in. I can't defend anything. I'll just keep saying, yay, Palestine. Israel bad. You're a shill. Yay, Palestine. Israel bad. You're a shill. I'm fighting evil. I'm doing the important work. I'm doing it. I'm so articulate. More people should talk like me. But I now get to go down, hang out with my son, hang out with my wife, and damn, it's cathartic to call out sacks of shit like you. So I am happy. I am very happy that you decided to weigh in with your stupid fucking point. It does feel great. How much you want to bet? Just guessing. If we knew Nada of Canada's real Twitter feed, how much you want to bet they were celebrating the October 7th attack? Anyone want to take any bets? Want to fucking bet? Thank you, Roman King. I really appreciate it. Stick around. We're making fun of this stupid shithead on Twitch. Didn't you? Just admit it, Nada. Just admit it. On October 7th, you were celebrating. Go ahead, then post your Twitter feed. Let's see it. Put the link to your Twitter feed. Let's go. I don't have Twitter. I actually just started on Twitter a week ago. I wasn't there October 7th. We know. I hear it every fucking time I argue with you stupid lefties. I can't call in. I don't know how a phone works. I don't know how to work Discord. I'm busy right now. I have time to sit here and type, but I can't call in. I don't post on Twitter. I don't have that social media. Okay, cool. So you surely made a Twitch video. I didn't comment on things. I wasn't politically active 2 weeks ago. I only started now. Show us your post. Show us your post. What you were saying October 7th. Facebook? Instagram? I don't have any social media. Just a Twitch channel. Thank you, Roman King. I appreciate it. I enjoy working with the Crucible. Good people. We don't agree on everything, but they're good people. I like Andrew and Zen and Rachel. I think they're great. I don't post anything. I just call out shields like you. But I'm too much of a coward to call in. I can't do that. All right, Nada. Any last words before you're banned permanently? Go ahead. Anyone want to guess Nada's last words? Calling me a shill. From the river to the sea? That would be good. Bye. Well, that's the first thing you've said that I could get behind. See ya. Now, look, there's a lot of criticisms you could make of me. I don't know how you could sit here and listen to me rail on and on again about how I'm tired of these fucking neocons trying to drag us into wars. I'm tired of the funding that goes to these foreign countries while our border's porous. I'm tired of foreign countries having too much lobbying, whether it be Ukraine or Israel. And I've been saying this shit for years, ever since I started my channel. How you could hear that and say, yeah, you're a Zionist shill. It's not even, like it would literally, like I could be like, we should completely, we should completely dissolve the state of Israel. Completely. The United States military should go in and dissolve the state of Israel. But I don't think we should kill all the Jewish people. And he'd be like, you fucking Zionist shill. What a shill. Thinking Jews should be allowed to live? That's despicable. Listen to this guy. He only wants to dissolve Israel. That's all he wants to do. What a Zionist shill. You fucking idiot. It's not enough to say we shouldn't be funding them. It's not enough to have post after post and me saying, I think they are going too far. They absolutely had the right to defend themselves. That doesn't mean that they're not going too far. Not enough. Still a Zionist shill. Banana Slice says, I have a tendency of making assumptions about what people think, Rob. You don't know what his opinion is. You're just making an assumption. Well, allow me to retort, Banana Slice. When someone repeatedly calls me a Zionist shill, even though it's obvious that I am the exact opposite of that, I think it's within bounds for me to make assumptions on what their worldview would be, especially when they're unwilling to disclose those. Similarly, let me give some assumptions about you while we're on it. You're a low testosterone fucking piece of shit cuck. That's just an assumption I'm making. You probably don't have any friends in real life because you're an uninteresting person that just fucking says, but wait a minute, both sides do it. I don't want to take any risk or say anything that could offend anyone. You're probably the worst type of person that your parents are ashamed of you because you'll never actually amount to anything in life or actually say anything that, is strongly worded or is an actual stance. That's just an assumption I'm making about you. Could be wrong. Just an assumption. Close? Just curious. Wait a minute, assumptions. I think you're making assumptions about the assumptions I make. How do you know if that's what I do or not? Sounds like an assumption on your part. I might have mental problems. I might. Well, that sounds like an assumption. So Banana Slice is making an assumption that I could have mental problems because I went on a 30-minute rant about a mild comment of someone saying you're a shill. It was someone that made the comment over and over again who has made the comment previously on the channel, and it's not a sign of mental problems despite what your assumption might be of what I might have. It's not, like, for example, when I said, how much you want to bet this guy said this? Did you say that, right? It's right in line with saying they might have said that. The idea that you think that saying might means that you're not making an assumption just proves what a sack of shit bad faith person you are anyways. Another assumption on my part, although backed up by evidence, right? So what you can see is, though, that people want to control the conversation. They want me, oh, I see someone's calling me a Zionist shill for the 300th time. Thank you so much for your input. I don't feel that I'm a Zionist shill, but I appreciate you tuning in. I wouldn't want to make any assumptions about what anyone in the audience thinks. Now I'll go back to allowing people to gaslight about exactly what I'm saying without commenting on the audience. That's the best form of content, after all. It's just people that talk stoically and don't interact with their audience other than to say, thank you so much for being here. I actually tried to talk to people, particularly the people that disagree with me more, but I understand how someone like Banana Slice might think that that would be too much. Right, I will go on about you for 30 minutes. That's absolutely true. I will do that if that's what I feel. Unfortunately, I got to wrap up here by 1 o'clock, but thank you so much for giving me permission as to what I'm allowed to do. I really appreciate that, Banana Slice. Now, let's point to some of your content. Let's see some of the things that you're up to, right? Clearly, you're someone that, obviously, you're not making assumptions about people whatsoever. You don't do things like comment on people that are making comments in your threads or things like that. You're criticizing me for calling out someone that called me a shill over and over again, both today and yesterday, saying that that was just a flippant comment that I should have let go. And yet here you are, even more worthlessly, commenting in chat, spending your day talking about something. Who's more worthless? The person that's commenting on what some person in chat said, or the person that's actually not even competent enough to have a stream themselves, and so they're commenting on someone else commenting on what someone's commented on in the chat? Just curious. Who do you think's more worthless? Who do you think's wasting their time more? You love me? Well, I'm going to make some assumptions then. You love me? That assumption sounds like that you're trying to get into some sort of romantic relationship with me. I'm sorry, I'm happily married, Banana Slice. No, I don't say to be competent you need to be a streamer. That's not my argument whatsoever. You've exhibited your lack of competence through the things you're saying. What I am saying, though, is if you're going to criticize people, right, it would be nice to see what your commentary is. Maybe it's on social media. I assume you haven't made assumptions about people. That's your big criticism of me. Tell me the assumption that I made about Nada that you disagree with. What was the assumption? That I said that he probably celebrated the October 7th attack? Am I always this harsh on commenters? Sometimes. Says who? I'm right, but it's not worthy of a 30-minute rant. I don't think your commentary criticizing my 30-minute rant's worth 10 posts that you've made. Now where are we? You have an option. Your option could be, I don't think this is worth a 30-minute rant. I don't think the rant was 30 minutes, but let's say that it was. You could say, I don't think that Rob's commentary is worth it. I'm going to check out a different channel. Right? That's one thing. Similarly, I don't think your commentary on my commentary is worth it. Okay, now what? My wife's great. You guys would love her. Right, it was entertaining. I enjoyed it. Can anyone that's a frequent follower of my audience, what's the number one reason that I stream? Anyone that's been here a while? I say it all the time. Income? Yeah, because it's fun. That's why. Do I want to see a positive change in the country? Yes. Do I believe thoroughly in all the things I say? Yes. Do I think it's important to be active culturally and politically? Yes. But I would be bullshitting you if I tried to sit here and tell you, I'm some hero. I'm out here trying to save the country. That's not it. The moment this becomes not fun for me is the moment I'm done. You could think that makes me a shallow person. Absolutely fine. I don't care. So sometimes I have fun when there's stupid piece of shit people in my chat that want to say things like I'm a shill for literally saying the opposite of what they're implying I'm saying. Sometimes I like to have fun and destroy them. And I did have fun destroying them. And I hope that you all had fun watching me destroy them. I do. This is less fun arguing with you. You're not as fun as that guy, if I'm just honest. But I feel like talking to you right now, so I'm talking to you. That's why I do it. You might think I don't like that. Maybe you think that you want a more stoic, sober-minded person. Absolutely fine. The internet is a huge place. I'm sure you could find someone. But Rob, isn't that a bad idea to tell people in your audience to go somewhere else? Yeah, it would be if my audience was like my primary source of income or something like that. But seeing as how I'm here for fun, and I certainly would want more people to watch, I certainly do, don't get me wrong. But I'm absolutely fine telling someone that's very upset and thinks that I'm wasting my time when I'm calling out stupid lefties that I think need to be called out. I'm very content with walking out for the best interest of that audience member as well and telling them to go elsewhere where they'll find content that doesn't seem to upset them as much. Just saying. And this old gamer X, he trying to get involved in it too. I'm wasting my time attacking irrelevant randos. Well, I'll tell you right now, I was going to end the stream 20 minutes ago, but my wife and kid aren't home yet. So I really have nothing to do when I go downstairs. They'll be getting home around 1. So, is this or nothing, I guess? One productive thing I'll say is, anyone have a topic suggestion for the spaces tomorrow? What's up, Mark Murda? How you doing? Yeah, I know. I'm not even mad at Banana Slice, really. That other guy could get fucked, that not of Canada. And I honestly, Banana Slice, don't believe that your parents don't love you. I'm sure you're a really great guy. Or woman, I don't know. Yeah, absolutely. Old Hem Gamer X. Yeah, I'm not mad. That other guy could fuck off. I'm so, like, it's a criticism that I'm just so over. Yeah, Aftershock, we could try. Maybe that's what I'll text John and see if he's down with that. I would love to talk more about that. How do I think Mike Johnson's been doing as speaker? I mean, what's really happened? We're going to send more money to Israel. I mean, nothing's really happened. Does anybody's life markedly get worse when we didn't have a Speaker of the House? Now they're going to send subpoenas to the Bidens. Great. That should have happened like how many years ago? What are we going to do in the meantime? Write strongly worded letter. What happens when Biden's family's like, yeah, we're not going to honor those subpoenas? You think they'll be charged with contempt and arrested like Merrick Garland did to Steve Bannon? What do you think the chances of that? But the problem is going to be Aftershock with that topic is as soon as the audience gets involved, it's going to be Trump sucks. It's going to be election stuff. So, yeah, I did a space last night with John Burke, and we talked a lot about the abortion stuff. I don't disagree that it's worth talking about, but I'm sure that his audience doesn't want to hear it again since we just did it yesterday. No, I don't think Republican leadership will actually allow Biden to like go to jail to be prosecuted in the way that Donald Trump is. I don't believe that. Maybe there are people like Matt Gaetz that really would push for that, maybe even James Comer, but the Republican leadership will not allow it. Trump is a unique case. He's seen as an outsider. The uniparty, Republicans and Democrats, don't want cases to start coming at the other side because then they're like, okay, it'll come at you as well. So they'll push right up to it. They'll say, look at all this evidence of wrongdoing. Oh, well, what can we do? So no. Now, inevitably, I could be wrong. Inevitably, given a long enough time frame, something could happen. But I'll be right 99 out of 100 times. So if I'm wrong, I'll be pleasantly surprised. Now, Burke's still not going to vote if Trump wins. I guess I'll have plenty of time to talk to him after Trump wins the primary to try to convince him why they should vote for Trump. But Aftershock was on a space with me the other night at like 2:30 in the morning talking to a bunch of DeSantis people. It's fucking nuts. I don't know how else to put it. Like, Aftershock, you still here? Aftershock, like, texted me and was like, we're fucked. I don't know what to say. There were comments such as this were being made. Yeah, okay, maybe we will end up in World War III if Democrats win again, but I don't care, it's worth it. What? What are you talking about? What? They hate Trump so much and like DeSantis so much that literally they would be willing to accept, okay, maybe another Biden administration gets us into World War III, but it'd still be worse than mean tweets from Trump, insults to DeSantis from Trump. I would get 3 words out, I would get muted. And I wasn't even that harsh. Like, I went into that space, like, basically saying, like, listen, we need to coalesce around a candidate, you know, because this deck stacks so hard against us. And they're like, but Trump, 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 Trump. And I was like, let me just ask this audience, if Trump wins the primary, will you vote in the general? And there was one person that spoke up and said, yeah, begrudgingly. And everyone else was like, no. And some of them were like, actually, Trump was worse than Biden. Yeah, I don't think that that's representative of the majority of voters. But again, and I talked about this on my space yesterday, like, the Republicans have to run the gambit. The institutional control is so against any sort of anti-authoritarian Republican with the mainstream media, algorithms, right? Social media companies, corporate America, academia, the entertainment, all of them pushing the same thing. That they have to have the right candidate, they have to have the right messaging, they have to have the right fundraising. And even if Republicans are going to win the presidential, like if DeSantis or Trump were to win the presidential election, it's going to be razor thin if they win. So you can't have 50,000 people like, fuck that, I hate Trump so much, I'm not going to vote for him in the primary, I'll only vote for DeSantis. And the other thing is, and we didn't get into this, but something to ruminate on as I'm going to end the stream here is, why is it a shoo-in that if MAGA is defeated that it becomes DeSantis' party? How do we know it doesn't become Nikki Haley's party? How are we so... The DeSantis people are imminently confident. As much as the rhino donors, the neocon donors, donate against Donald Trump right now, if Trump's soundly defeated and MAGA goes away, which it won't, but if it did, like, it's not just going to go away, but if it did go away, they're just going to change their target to the DeSantis type people. That's it. Then it'll be neocons versus DeSantis. And the neocons would be happier to have Ron DeSantis than someone like Vivek or Donald Trump. But they'd still rather have the neocons. That's where all the money's going to be. Banana Slice, that's an excellent point. DeSantis the other week, he was doing like the podcast circuit. I thought he was crushing it. I don't know why he hasn't been doing it. Again, my gut feeling is DeSantis just has fucking horrible people around him, which is ironic because that would be one of his biggest criticisms of Trump, that Trump put horrible people around him. But it just seemed like the pictures of DeSantis smiling, I can't even do it. It's like he's forcing it. It's like I could just see it. Like, you know, his people like, focus groups tell us you need to smile more, so make sure you're smiling. Now, when it comes to Ukraine, that's a contentious issue. We don't want to upset the sort of old guard wing of the Republican Party, the Mitch McConnells, the Lindsey Grahams, but we also don't want to upset the MAGA people. So what you say is like, oh, funding's complicated, and some of the funding's going to corruption, and we don't like that, but, you know, we're spending too much money. That's a non-answer. Shit or get off the pot, man. And I believe DeSantis is just like I believe Trump's gut was in the right place. And I could be wrong. I could have been wrong about Trump, but in 2016, when Trump's coming out like, yeah, what the fuck are we bombing Syria for? Like, what are we fighting Russia for in Syria? Shouldn't we be working with them to fight ISIS? Yes! And then all of a sudden, like, Mike Pence and the rest of the GOP was like, oh shit, you can't say that. Don't say that. And then I feel like when he was in office, he constantly had these people in his ear. Oh, you need to bomb Syria. Oh, you got to do this. You got to do this. And then he gave in. Still on Trump. I still criticize Trump. Don't get me wrong. I feel like that with DeSantis. I feel like if I'm sitting with DeSantis, totally off the record, just two guys like drinking a beer, and I'm like, what do you think about this Ukraine shit? I think he would be like, yeah, fuck all that. What are we doing? It's ridiculous. But he has people telling him like, no, you don't want to alienate anyone. Well, that's not what we need in a leader at this point. I don't want a leader that's trying not to step on toes. I like the Ron DeSantis that was stepping on toes. That's what I like. And if that means stepping on toes of some establishment Republican people, so be it. And people could say what they want about Vivek flip-flopping and stuff. I'm not saying that's not untrue. I've seen some of that personally myself. But dude, like my friend who's a lefty, he's texting me during the debate last night, and he's like, you basically got to admire the guy's balls. I mean, he comes out, he's like, we're going to get rid of 75% of the federal workforce. That's a ballsy fucking statement. Which I happen to agree with. But even if you don't agree with it, there's no ambiguity there. It's not like, oh, yeah, maybe we'll get rid of some people, maybe we won't. We going to send money to Ukraine? No, absolutely not. There's no ambiguity there. That's someone that's saying, and that's how I ran my campaign when I ran. This is what I believe, and if you don't like it, there's another candidate for you. I don't know what else to say. I'm not going to sit here and go, well, I don't want to step on any toes and blah, blah, blah. Now, is there a way to craft your narrative to try to get people that disagree with you? Absolutely. You can say we shouldn't send money to Ukraine because, unfortunately, we won't have an endless tap of money. We can see the financial problems back home in our country. And so if we make these commitments that we're going to, in perpetuity, continue to send this money, this could go on for decades. And the people that will be harmed the worst are the actual people of Ukraine that are losing their fighting age men, and now they're actually sending more fighting age women. It's time for us to recognize that Vladimir Putin is terrible and despicable, and he shouldn't have invaded. However, we need to come, while we still have some bargaining potential, to a bargaining table and give up some key concessions like an attempt to stop NATO expansion and things like that, to get some concessions from Russia that they'll stop their aggressive expansion and still leave Zelensky and the Ukrainian people control the vast majority of their country. What's wrong with that answer? We're definitely not sending money. But the people that want money, at least you're not telling them, fuck you, you're a terrible person. You're explaining to those voters. And that's one of the things, I think Trump's screwed this up a little. One of the things I always praised Trump about, particularly in 2016 and even in 2020, he was very aggressive about politicians he didn't like or media people he didn't like. But he didn't really attack the voters. He didn't attack left-wing voters. And you shouldn't do that. When I ran for office, the big thing was 2019, AOC just came in. So everybody was talking about AOC and how dumb she was. And I constantly was going to these speaking events where I'm speaking, and then I talk to people afterwards, and they go, these stupid young people voting for AOC, they're so fucking stupid, blah, blah, blah. And I was like, I wouldn't say that. Why? I was like, don't you want them to vote for you? How did you feel when Hillary Clinton called you a deplorable? Did you rush out to vote for her? So it's okay to attack AOC, but I wouldn't attack her voters. It's okay for me to attack dumb shits like Pisco or the people on my chat, but you won't hear me say, I tell it all the time. What do I think about AOC voters and progressive? I think that they too are frustrated with a system that they see not benefiting them. That's what I think. I think they've chosen poorly. I disagree with their choice, but I understand their frustration at wanting someone to shake things up. Yeah, I agree, Kane Marco. So, all right, I'm out. So you'll see me around 11 a.m. tomorrow. I'm not going to worry about raiding anyone tonight. Apologies, but I think I just heard my family get home, so I'm going to go down with them and maybe get some lunch because I'm a big fat guy. I'll start a diet tomorrow. How about that? Now, I appreciate you all. Even stupid banana slice on Kick, which, by the way, being on Kick, if I am going to make an assumption, banana slice is cooler than 80% of you, even if he's making stupid comments, because he's actually on Kick. Right, which is a platform that hopefully won't ban me if I say the wrong pronoun or some shit like that, So thank you to you all. I do really appreciate it. Thank you to John Burk for giving me the opportunity. Thank you to his audience. I'll come up with a topic tomorrow. Hopefully we'll have some fun. Please Get more involved on that space. Call in, man. You know how it is. I could sit here and talk for hours and hours and hours and hours, but it's nice to hear from other people, and it's easier content for me to just leave other people talk. And it's, in all honesty, it's more interesting, right? Because people, if you want to just hear my perspective, then you could just tune into me now. But Spaces is more about getting a wide swath of perspectives from other people. So, all right, thank you all so much. I hope you all have a great day. Oh, wait, I'm supposed to say have a good one. If I say have a great day first, that's... Anyways, have a good one.